Chapter 1811 Overpowered Equipment. Chapter 1811 Overpowered Equipment. Hellscythe _ Lucky Old Cat. So fast! The members of Dark Hunters couldn't help their surprise as they watched Gentle Snow attack Black Shark. Gentle Snow was simply too fast. Not only had she broken through their defensive lines without much effort, but she had also reached their commander in the blink of an eye. Her 16 swords of light also targeted Black Shark's blind spots. Defending against so many attacks at once was impossible for a ranger. "You want to kill me?" Black Shark sneered at the 16 swords of light. Before the swords of light struck the ranger, Black Shark swung his longbow horizontally, forming a barrier of wind around him. The wind pushed all 16 swords of light away, and they harmlessly brushed past Black Shark. The ranger did not receive a single point of damage. Tier 2 skill, Wind Armor. Although Gentle Snow hadn't harmed Black Shark with her 2 great swords this time, he couldn't attack while under Wind Armor's protection. When Wind Armor was about to disappear, Black Shark activated Backward Jump. He fired 5 arrows, which formed a magic array and shot towards Gentle Snow like a comet, while he soared backward through the air. Tier 2 skill, Starburst. This was the Ranger class's most powerful Tier 2 skill. The skill combined the power of 5 arrows, and the attack was even strong enough to force a Great Lord of the same level stumbling backward. Despite the approaching attack, however, Gentle Snow didn't bother to dodge. Instead, she countered the attack with a swing of Glorious Will. Will of Light. Buffed by Will of Light, Glorious Will released a golden brilliance as it transformed into a streak of light and clashed with Black Shark's Starburst. Boom! Gentle Snow's counterattack sliced Starburst in half on the spot, stupefying the other players present. From afar, it had looked like a beam of light slicing apart another beam of light. It was spectacular. A heartbeat later, an intense shockwave slammed into the surrounding players. After cutting down Starburst, Glorious Will continued to slice the area in front of its wielder. The 6 Tier 1 Dragonids caught in Gentle Snow's 5 by 25-yard AoE died instantly. How is that possible? Hasn't she used that attack already? Could it be a bug? Some players, who had a good memory, noticed that the skill Gentle Snow had just used was the same one that she had used to protect Zero Wing's Shield Warrior and kill several Tier 1 Dragonids earlier. Normally, such a powerful skill should have a very long cooldown. But even if it had a short cooldown, there was no way that she could use it after just a few seconds. But before anyone could figure out what had happened, Gentle Snow swung Glorious Will at Black Shark yet again. Like before, Glorious Will released a golden light that extended towards Black Shark. Black Shark had just landed, and he had no way to dodge the attack. Seeing the approaching sword light, Black Shark could not help but frown. Immediately, he pulled his ancient longbow's bowstring. This time, however, he did not nock any arrows. He simply pulled an empty string. However, a horrific amount of mana gathered around the empty bow, forming an arrow of light. He then released the bowstring and sent the light arrow flying at the incoming sword light. Unlike before, Gentle Snow's attack didn't stop Black Shark's arrow. On the contrary, the light arrow shattered the sword light as it continued towards Gentle Snow. Die! Black Shark sneered as he watched the arrow come within 10 yards of his target. This arrow of light wasn't a result of a ranger skill. It was actually one of his bow's skills, Space Shattering Arrow. Not only could it enhance his attack by 1 tier, but it could also severely injure a Grand Lord of the same level. Suddenly, the light arrow split into over 30 miniature copies. Even Gentle Snow felt powerless for a moment, as she watched the tiny arrows rain down. Meanwhile, the nearby Dark Hunters revealed victorious expressions. They were all very familiar with their commander's move. Each one of those miniature arrows carried 100% of Black Shark's strength. Even if just a few arrows found their mark, Gentle Snow would lose a significant amount of HP. However, something unexpected happened suddenly. Once again, Gentle Snow raised Glorious Will high, and it released the same golden glow it had twice before. Glancing at the 30+ arrows flying towards her, Gentle Snow swung down Glorious Will. Once again, a golden beam of light shot forth from the great sword, instantly devouring every light arrow and continuing toward Black Shark. Responding quickly, Black Shark leaped out of the golden beam's way in the nick of time. When the ranger stood back up, he could not help but stare at Gentle Snow in utter shock. Who is she? When Black Shark looked at Gentle Snow now, he did so without his previously complacent expression. He was a ranger, a class that focused on ranged attacks, yet despite facing a berserker like Gentle Snow, he was at a disadvantage. This was simply unbelievable. Even Veiled Spirit, who commanded her allies in battle, wore a somber expression as she looked at Gentle Snow. She was quite familiar with Black Shark's strength. Even when Black Shark had fought Unyielding Heart, Unyielding Soul's #1 berserker, he had suppressed the man easily as long as he didn't allow the berserker within melee range, yet a different berserker had suppressed him in a ranged battle. During the brief moment, while Gentle Snow had both Black Shark and Veiled Spirit distracted, a series of screams rose from the Dark Hunter's army. To be precise, they came from the MTs that had transformed into Dragonides. Despite having transformed into Dragonids, a single female assassin was slaughtering the Tier 1 MTs. Moreover, the female assassin was only using Tier 1 skills to kill the full HP MTs. Elsewhere, a female elementalist hurled one spell after another, the ice and fire type spells instant killing any player who was not an MT. When 3 Tier 2 players tried to stop this elementalist, she split into 3 clones. Each copy easily suppressed the 3 Tier 2 players that assaulted her, and in the end, she killed all 3 in fewer than 5 moves. This startled the nearby Dark Hunters. A short distance away, a Guardian Knight rampaged among the Dark Hunters' frontline. With a single charging attack, the Guardian Knight sent more than 10 players flying. Even when the player took Tier 2 attacks directly, the Guardian Knight only lost a little over 2000 HP. The Guardian Knight's defense was even higher than the Dragonid players. So many of Zero Wing's members displayed ridiculously high combat power. Just one of these Zero Wing members could contend with 2 or 3 Tier 2 Dark Hunters. Because of these Zero Wing players, the Dark Hunters, which had the upper hand initially, suffered constant casualties. So strong! Cycling Light, who currently fought a Tier 2 player, was stunned when he saw Fire Dance and her companions fight from the corner of his eye. Shark! We can't let this continue! Even if we win, we'll likely suffer severe losses. We should wait for the other adventurer teams to arrive and take action together. Veiled Spirit messaged Black Shark through a private chat. Several other adventurer teams have heard about our ambush. I doubt it will be long before they arrive. While it was true that they had been hired to annihilate Zero Wing, they had stated one precondition for taking this job: they couldn't afford too heavy of a loss. Otherwise, the rewards weren't worth the cost. All right. Let's retreat, Black Shark said, gritting his teeth as he agreed to the temporary withdrawal. Although he was reluctant to run from his fight with Gentle Snow, the situation right now in the 3 guilds' favor. Moreover, the basic Dragonide potion his allies had consumed lasted half an hour. That was more than enough time for the other adventurer teams to arrive and assist them in a second assault. Following which, Black Shark ordered his army to pull back. You want to leave? Realizing that Black Shark was trying to widen the distance between them, Gentle Snow used Will of Light once more. Damn it! How many times can she use that skill? Black Shark felt as if he were going a little mad when he saw the approaching beam of light. Despite the fact that Gentle Snow was only a refinement realm expert, she had suppressed him thoroughly in a ranged battle with her powerful skills and basic attributes. There was too little distance between them, and Black Shark had no time to dodge the incoming attack. As a result, he was forced to use a life-saving skill to protect himself. After using his life-saving skill, however, Black Shark noticed Gentle Snow radiate a rainbow glow. In the next moment, a powerful pressure weighed him down, reducing his speed. Now, he had lost the advantage in speed he should normally have. Before Black Shark noticed, 3 sacred spears flew towards him. Black Shark desperately tried to block the attack with his bow. However, the moment one of the sacred spears encountered his ancient bow, Black Shark felt as if he had been hit by a truck. Unable to resist the powerful force, Black Shark stumbled backward, his HP instantly falling by over 3,000. While Black Shark dealt with the 3 sacred spears, Gentle Snow, who was less than 15 yards away, executed Will of Light, whose cooldown just so happened to have ended. Will of Light. This time, Black Shark had no spare energy to stop the approaching beam of light. The attack devoured him, and his body transformed into particles of light as he vanished from the battlefield. Chapter 1812 Light's Power. Chapter 1812 Light's Power. Hellscythe _ Lucky Old Cat. Commander? The commander got killed. Is she a monster? Seeing Black Shark's body disappear, the members of the Dark Hunters Adventurer team were stunned. A few members had even forgotten to attack and took direct hits from Zero Wing and Unyielding Souls players. How could the commander lose? Lonely Lamp could not bring himself to believe what he had just seen. Black Shark's strength had imprinted itself on Lonely Lamp and the other Dark Hunters' minds long ago. Not only were Black Shark's combat techniques astounding, but he also wore the best equipment available at this stage of the game. Even if he faced Super Guild's old monsters, he could enter and leave the battlefield freely. If a group of Tier 2 players had ganged up and killed Black Shark, Lonely Lamp could believe that his commander had died, but a single player had faced and killed Black Shark. Moreover, that player wasn't a monster-level expert that had enjoyed many years of fame in the virtual gaming world. How could he possibly accept this fact as true? How is she so strong? Unyielding Heart, who looked at Gentle Snow standing proudly in the distance, was at a loss for words when he saw what had happened. Both surprise and admiration filled his heart. He was no stranger to the name Gentle Snow. After all, she had once been a guild leader herself. Although her guild had been disbanded due to the Blackwater Corporation's intervention, it was an inescapable fact that Gentle Snow was a very talented player. After Ouroboros had disbanded, Unyielding Soul had attempted to recruit Gentle Snow, and it hadn't been the only superpower to reach out to her. According to Unyielding Heart's knowledge, at least 3 superpowers had tried to recruit the Snow Goddess. In the end, however, Gentle Snow had chosen to join Zero Wing, which had been an unknown guild at the time. This decision disappointed the various superpowers. During the earlier dungeon raid, Unyielding Heart's opinions about Gentle Snow had been reaffirmed. The woman was indeed extremely talented and would no doubt become a famous expert in God's domain in the future. Right now, however, Gentle Snow's combat standard was still too rough. She relied entirely on her advantage and basic attributes to contend with the various superpowers' peak experts. Unyielding Heart had never imagined that just by switching to a new weapon, Gentle Snow would be able to display combat power on par with experts like himself. By relying on that horrific skill of hers, her victory over Black Shark, who was very famous among the Dark Knight Empire's dark forces, had been overwhelming. Unyielding Heart could not help but pity Black Shark. He also understood why Black Shark had lost. If he had to challenge Gentle Snow, he'd likely suffer a similar fate. It was simply absurd that Gentle Snow could use a skill with such high burst damage repeatedly within such a short time. This was no longer an attack that could be mitigated with techniques. Not even an assassin, the class with the most life-saving skills, would get away from Gentle Snow unscathed, much less a ranger like Black Shark. If Black Shark had to blame someone for his death, he could only blame himself for launching his ambush with such poor timing. He had actually attacked on the day Zero Wing raided the Eclipse throne. Moreover, the ambush had taken place after Zero Wing had cleared the super large-scale team dungeon. Thanks to the dungeon's loot, Zero Wing's members had improved their weapons and equipment considerably. What immense power! Just what is that weapon? Phoenix Rain was a little astonished as she looked at the glorious will Gentle Snow wielded. Although she knew that any weapon from the magic crystal treasure chest would be extraordinary, she had never thought the weapon would be this powerful. Glorious Will had elevated Gentle Snow's combat power to a whole new level. This was especially true for her PvP capabilities. Moreover, Cola's performance on the battlefield was also eye-catching. Equipped with the Dark Corrosion set, Cola's entire body radiated a scorching aura. While in battle, this aura became even more intense. Any player that came close to the Guardian Knight would felt a stinging pain, losing their focus in the fight. Without enough fire resistance, players even took damage from this burning aura. Even against multiple Tier 2 melee experts, Cola easily sent them all stumbling backward with a single charging assault when struck by a Tier 2 fire-type spell. Cola would only receive around -2,000 damage. As for Tier 1 spells, they did less than -1,000 damage. To Cola, who had over 85,000 HP, this was barely a scratch. By himself, Cola had torn a hole through the Dark Hunter's defensive net. The Dark Corrosion set performed better than she had imagined. After a brief moment of silence on the battlefield, the Dark Hunter's adventurer team snapped out of their daze. But unexpectedly, the Dark Hunters didn't turn and flee. Instead, they stared at Gentle Snow with greedy eyes. That woman's combat standard is subpar at best. The fact that she can kill the commander must mean that she has excellent equipment. Her great sword looks so cool. It's definitely not some ordinary weapon. She just finished a tough fight with the commander. She must have exhausted her skills. If we kill her now, we can claim her equipment for our own. Desire dominated the Dark Hunters as they watched Gentle Snow, who currently stood alone within her enemy's ranks. Have these people lost their minds? They're actually eyeing Gentle Snow at a time like this? Blue Phoenix was confused when she saw the Dark Hunter's greed. She simply could not understand what was going through these players' minds. The Dark Hunters had lost their momentum, yet rather than trying to escape, these players wanted to waste precious time to surround and kill Gentle Snow. Kill her! Avenge the commander! Right. Kill her for the commander! With a shout, 80 or so Dark Hunters near Gentle Snow charged at the female berserker. They had been in the process of retreating, and to kill Black Shark, Gentle Snow had reached their rear line by herself. She didn't have a single companion nearby. This was their opportunity to take her out and plunder her items. Moreover, they were all experts. They could tell that Gentle Snow had only defeated their commander because of the frightening skills she possessed. In their experience, such a powerful skill wasn't from a skill book. There was an 80% chance that the skill belonged to the weapons or equipment she used. Many of the Dark Hunters had already consumed the basic Dragonoid potion. They were going to die sooner or later. If they could kill Gentle Snow and get a piece of top-tier equipment before they died, their death would be worth it. Most importantly, there was a very high chance that they would succeed. Not good! Guild leader Black Flame, we need to save her! Unyielding Heart shouted as he watched the Dark Hunters surround the Snow Goddess. However, as soon as Unyielding Heart finished his statement, Gentle Snow charged straight toward the 80+ Dark Hunters approaching her. 5 of these Dark Hunters were Tier 2 experts. Even Black Shark would be hard-pressed to survive if surrounded by such a force. Yet, Gentle Snow showed no intention of running away. Instead, she simply raised Glorious Will. A moment later, the weapon began to cast a dazzling glow. She's going to use that move again. Everyone, pay attention to dodging. Lonely Lamp, who was part of the crowd charging at Gentle Snow, shouted. As experts, the Dark Hunters reacted very quickly. They had also long since estimated Will of Light's AoE and maintained a suitable distance from each other. Meanwhile, seeing the Dark Hunters spread out, Gentle Snow could not help but smile, confusing her opponents. However, before anyone could figure out what was going on, Gentle Snow brandished Glorious Will. However, unlike before, Gentle Snow did not swing her great sword downward. Instead, she thrust it into the ground before her. A dazzling beam of light then pierced the dusky sky and descended on Gentle Snow. In the next moment, a magic array appeared beneath the approaching 80+ Dark Hunters. The Dark Hunters caught within the magic array felt an intense pressure weigh them down as their movements became sluggish. They all felt the threat of death loom over them. No! This isn't the same move! It's another skill! The Dark Hunters quickly realized that something was amiss, but it was too late to change their fate. Disappear from this place! Myth of Light! Before anyone could react, Gentle Snow tightened her grip around Glorious Will and pulled the weapon from the ground in an upward slash. The sword light cut through the earth, shattering it. As the sword light moved forward, it rapidly expanded and devoured everything it touched. By the time the sword light disappeared, the fading light had revealed a 6-meter-deep crater that stretched out in a 50-yard cone before Gentle Snow. Ownerless weapons and equipment littered the crater. Chapter 1813 Magic Soldiers Descent. Chapter 1813 Magic Soldiers Descent. Hellscythe _ Lucky Old Cat. Such power! Surefoam was a little astonished when he saw the crater Myth of Light had created. The skill's destructive power was even superior to Flame Domain's. Flame Domain only caused massive amounts of damage. It couldn't change the terrain like Myth of Light had. While the ability to affect the surrounding terrain might not seem much, it had a lot of uses in specific situations. This ability was particularly useful during a siege battle. Myth of Light could decimate defensive structures. It was far more powerful than an ordinary war weapon since its ability to alter the terrain would damage targeted defensive structures' defense and defensive magic array, making them more vulnerable to attacks. In the past, such items had been strategic resources for the various large guilds. A weapon like Glorious Will was no longer a weapon to be used against other players, but against towns and cities. Moreover, despite causing so much destruction, the current Glorious Will wasn't complete. When they gathered enough magic crystals and sun essences to upgrade it, the power of Myth of Light would increase further. Surefoam wasn't the only person surprised by Myth of Light's destructive power. Even Unyielding Heart and Phoenix Rain, who stood nearby, were stunned. The dark hunters that had intended to charge at Gentle Snow were frozen with shock. What is that skill? How is it so powerful? Although they had seen quite a few high-tiered spells that could change the terrain, none of those spells had caused as much destruction as Myth of Light had. The 6-meter-deep crater's walls had even turned into molten lava. The skill's power was astonishing. After watching over 80 of their allies burn to ash, the remaining Dark Hunters hesitated, a little afraid. At least they could attempt to dodge Gentle Snow's Will of Light, but against such a super-large AoE, their deaths were guaranteed unless they had an invulnerability skill. They had no hope of dodging the attack. The Dark Hunters quietly re-examined Gentle Snow. Although their greed hadn't faded, fear was now the prevalent emotion in their hearts. Furthermore, the crater Myth of Light had formed prevented them from charging at Gentle Snow. The crater had also split their path of retreat in two. Now, all these players could think of was escape. No one knew whether or not Gentle Snow could use Myth of Light again, as she had with Will of Light. These players weren't fools. While they weren't afraid of death, they wouldn't die for nothing. If they died a natural death while under the effects of the basic Dragonoid potion, not only wouldn't they lose any weapons or equipment, but they'd also only lose 50% EXP. However, if they were killed, they'd lose a weapon or equipment piece and a full level. How does Zerowing have such a powerful player? Veiled Spirit, who was in the midst of retreating, could not help her shocked when she saw the Dark Hunter's fear. According to the information Shadowclaw had gathered, while Zerowing was very powerful, it definitely wasn't this strong. Gentle Snow, in particular, was like a completely different person from what the reports had described. The female berserker had single-handedly killed over 100 Dark Hunters. The Dark Hunters were not your average Joe. They were experts that had been handpicked and recruited from among the various Dark players. Moreover, they had received a lot of specialized training after joining the adventurer team. In addition, as Dark players, they were adept at fighting other players. In PvP, they were much stronger than ordinary expert players of the same combat standard. Yet, Gentle Snow had single-handedly killed off 1/10 of the Dark Hunters. This outcome was truly scary. Commander, the other adventurer team's commanders have messaged us, stating that they're almost here. 2 are very close and will reach us in around 2 to 3 minutes. They are hoping we can stall Zerowing for a little while longer. A level 55 female cleric wearing exquisite blue robes and wielded a silver staff suddenly reported. 2 or 3 minutes? Veiled Spirit fell into deep thought upon hearing this. A brief moment later, she responded. Notify the Dark Hunters and tell them that reinforcements will arrive soon. Tell them to do everything they can to stall for time. When trying to assassinate a guild's upper echelons, the first attempt was the most important, as these upper echelons wouldn't have prepared for an ambush. If the first attempt failed, subsequent attempts were even less likely to succeed. Now that Black Shark had prohibited Zero Wing, Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and Unyielding Soul's teleportation abilities and physically prevented these upper echelons from leaving the Dark Precinct, this was the perfect opportunity to kill these three guilds' upper echelons. They likely wouldn't find another such opportunity. As long as the dozen or so adventurer teams that belonged to Dark Soul gathered, the three guilds' experts would die here, even if they were more powerful. But Commander Zero Wing's people are too powerful. They are even slaughtering the Dark Hunters' Dragonite players. I'm afraid that the Dark Hunters will be annihilated before reinforcements arrive. If that happens, we'll be next, the female cleric said worriedly as she watched the Dark Hunters' member count continue to decrease. Moreover, the Dark Hunters should realize what fate awaits them if they stay and fight. They'll never agree to the proposal. Although they were all members of Dark Soul, the organization's adventurer teams were also rivals. None of them would willingly sacrifice themselves for another. Veiled Spirit understood that her demand was outrageous and would undoubtedly get rejected. After pondering for another moment, she commanded, I understand. Notify the Iron Blade team. Tell them that they don't need to hold back any longer. Have them help the Dark Hunters pin down Zero Wing. Let the Iron Blade team take action. Commander, isn't it a little early to expose this trump card? The female cleric asked in astonishment. Every adventurer team in Dark Soul had their own secrets. The Dark Hunters' basic Dragonade potion was one example. If the Dark Hunters hadn't used the potion in this battle, Shadowclaw would have remained ignorant of its existence. Although Shadowclaw did not possess an item like the basic Dragonade potion, it had its own trump card. It's fine. Holding Zero Wing's members back is more important right now, Veiled Spirit said as she waved off her subordinate's concern. If they did not stop Zero Wing now, their dream of obtaining Zero Wing's weapons and equipment would shatter. She could recognize that Zero Wing's upper echelons used far better weapons and equipment than what the adventurer team's commanders, like her and Black Shark, used. If Shadowclaw could get its hands on these items, it would have a chance of completing some of the quests that it had been forced to set aside for some time. Understood, the female cleric replied. She immediately notified the Iron Blade team, whose members currently fought the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, of the changed orders. At the same time, she had the retreating Dark Hunters stall for time. Fortunately, the Dark Hunters did not oppose Shadowclaw's request. They realized that, even if they started to flee now, Zero Wing's members would claim many of their lives. Rather than dying pointlessly, they might as well fight it out and hopefully buy enough time for reinforcements to arrive. For a time, the Dark Hunters engaged in a running battle with Zero Wing and Unyielding Soul's members, using hit-and-run tactics. They avoided any prolonged fights as much as possible, significantly reducing their casualty rate. On the other side of the battlefield, a 100-man team from Shadowclaw split away from the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's members and encroached on Zero Wing's battlefield. 10 of these 100 players were Tier 2, while the rest were Tier 1 players. This team was a relatively powerful expert team. However, this small detachment from Shadowclaw paled in comparison to Zero Wing's members, who were all Tier 2 players. Yet, these Shadowclaw members did not hesitate to face Zero Wing's members in a frontal clash. They showed no signs of fighting a running battle like the Dark Hunters. In fact, these Shadowclaw members charged straight at Shadow Sword's vanguard unit. Interesting. They want to pick a fight? Shadow Sword raised his brows in surprise when he noticed the approaching 100-man team. He selected a dozen or so players and moved to meet this new enemy. When less than 50 yards separated both sides, the Shadowclaw members grinned playfully. Each of them then took a magic array scroll from their bags and unfurled the scroll without hesitation. Suddenly, 10 magic arrays appeared on the battlefield, each maintained by 9 Tier 1 players and 1 Tier 2 player. A moment later, the Tier 1 players standing in each of the 10 magic arrays went pale, their basic attributes plummeting. In contrast, the Tier 2 players saw their aura's intensity rapidly increase. They also began to grow larger. In the blink of an eye, the 10 Tier 2 players had become 5-meter-tall giants. They were covered in pitch-black armor, which had been enchanted with magic runes. "It's time for you people from Zero Wing to learn of the Shadow Claw's greatness. Magic Soldier's Descent," the Berserker leading the Iron Blade team said, laughing as he looked at Shadow Sword and the small team the enemy Berserker led before swinging down the battle axe in his hands. Reacting quickly, Shadow Sword activated Whirlwind Slash before the gigantic axe could reach him. Clang! With the sound of metal on metal, Shadow Sword was thrown over 20 yards away, and he wasn't the only one. The other enlarged players had also sent the dozen or so Zero-Wing experts that had accompanied Shadow Sword flying, instantly dealing over -5,000 damage. The players that had taken a direct hit, however, had instantly lost over half of their HPs. This scene stupefied the 3 guilds members. Not only were Zero Wing's experts no match for these giants in a head-on collision despite both sides being Tier 2 players, but they had also lost over 5,000 HP. These colossal players had even more strength than a great lord of the same level. Magic Soldier's Descent? When he noticed them, Sherfone flashed the 10 armored giants a surprised look. Magic Soldier's Descent was a taboo magic array that sacrificed multiple players' attributes to enhance one of their comrades. Even the basic Magic Soldier's Descent could strengthen a player to the Tier 3 standard. However, the target had to be a Tier 2 player. Due to the 10 giants, the remaining Dark Hunters regained some confidence as they began to launch attacks alongside the giants. Unyielding Heart and Phoenix Rain watched the 10 gigantic players with somber expressions. Even an MT as powerful as Kola could only tank one of these giants. The only other player in Zero Wing that could do so was Gentle Snow. After a brief clash, Zero Wing's members began to retreat. Just before the giants shattered the formation of Zero Wing's vanguard, splitting it in two, a figure appeared before one of the massive enemy players. It was none other than Sherfone. Sherfone swung Killing Ray at the giant before him. Lightning Slash. Seeing the massive lightning bolt approaching him, the armored giant, who had the physique of a Tier 3 player, reacted very quickly and raised his battle axe to block the attack. Boom! The impact shoved the armored giant back by over 20 yards, the armored giant taking over -7,000 damage. Chapter 1814 Appearance of the Black Dragon. Chapter 1814 Appearance of the Black Dragon. Hellscythe_Lucky Old Cat. When the 5-meter-tall armored giant got pushed back by over 20 yards, the entire battlefield suddenly fell silent. Even the 9 other armored giants fighting some distance away shifted their gaze to their repulsed companion. Guild leader? When Zero Wing's members saw Sherfone appearing on the front lines, they all became very excited. Although Sherfone had already displayed superb combat power in the team dungeon, fighting in a battle against other players was another story. While inside a dungeon, the contribution an individual player could make was very limited. If one were to say that players only needed combat standards at the Trial Tower's 5th floor to raid a particular dungeon, then the maximum combat power that players could exhibit in a dungeon was the 6th floor standard. In that case, the combat standard that peak experts, who had reached the Trial Tower's 7th floor and beyond, could exhibit would be no different from that of 6th floor experts. They would not be able to display any additional strength in a dungeon despite their advantage in actual combat standards. However, a field battle against players was a different story. Depending on one's opponent, there was almost no limit to the combat standards one could exhibit. What great strength! Veiled Spirit, who was commanding the battle from afar, was startled when she saw the armored giant being pushed back. So he is Black Flame? She knew very clearly what kind of strength the armored giants possessed. The armored giants had not only Tier 3 physiques but also extraordinary strength and defense. They could easily suppress a Grand Lord of the same level. The Magic Soldier's Descent was made using a production scroll Shadow Claw had obtained from an ancient ruin. However, as the materials needed to make the magic array were extremely precious and difficult to acquire. Shadow Claw had only managed to make 10 of the magic arrays thus far. Originally, she had intended to keep the magic array as a trump card for when the Starlight Corporation launched an all-out war against Unyielding Soul. She had never thought that a lone player could push back one of the armored giants by such a long distance. However, after a brief moment of surprise, Veiled Spirit and the other members of Shadow Claw regained their calm. While it was indeed surprising that Sherfong had dealt over -7,000 damage to the armored giant despite the attack being blocked, the armored giant currently had 320,000 HP. They didn't even need a healer to handle this minuscule damage. The armored giant's battle recovery alone would suffice. What with the occasional heals sent by the rear-line healers, it was simply impossible for Sherfong to kill the armored giant all by himself. Just then, the fallen armored giant stood back up and charged at Sherfong with its great axe raised. Despite the armored giant's massive frame, its movement speed was actually superior to even a Tier 2 player's. The armored giant took only an instant to cross 20 yards and launch an attack on Sherfong. You simply relied on a skill to push me back. Now, it's time for you to realize the power of the magic soldier, the armored giant shouted. In the next moment, the black smoke circulating around the armored giant's battle axe turned into a gigantic lion exuding a frightening aura. The lion then pounced, slamming its paws down on Sherfong. Tier 3 skill, Magic Lion Stomp. At this distance and with the lion's attack speed, Sherfong couldn't dodge the lion's blow. Not daring to be careless, Sherfong met the attack with both his swords. Purgatory Pentaslash. In the next moment, Sherfeng's two swords met at a single point and slashed at the descending battle axe. Boom! Immediately, dazzling sparks scattered into the surroundings. The ground beneath Sherfeng's feet cracked and sank under the immense pressure. After the clash, Sherfong had actually sunk half a meter into the ground with a small crater around him. Meanwhile, a damage exceeding -5,000 also appeared above his head. The difference in strength between the two sides was obvious at a glance. Zero Wing's members turned somber at this situation. Meanwhile, Unyielding Heart and Phoenix Rain, who were currently fighting their own battles, were also astonished by this outcome. They had never thought that the armored giants would be that strong. An ordinary expert might not be able to discern the technique Sherfong had used, but they could tell what he had done just now. The general name of the technique was Strength Combination. It was an extremely difficult technique to grasp and was even more difficult to execute in high-speed combat. Even the slightest mistake in the technique's execution could have the opposite effect. Meanwhile, although Strength Combination didn't directly double the strength of one's attack, good execution of the technique would still yield a 70% increase in strength or more. Yet, despite having used this technique, Feng's strength had still lost to the armored giants by such a large margin. The armored giant's strength was definitely superior to a Grand Lord's of the same level. Its strength is at the peak of Tier 3? Sherfong thought to himself, as he eyed the magic soldier before him. Currently, both his hands were numb. He was currently a level 67, Tier 2 sword master. After executing Strength Combination, his strength should easily rival that of a level 55 Grand Lord. Yet, even with such strength, he was still inferior to the magic soldier before him. While part of the reason for this disparity was the difference in skills used, a large part of the reason was the difference in attributes. If the magic soldier's strength wasn't at the peak of level 55, Tier 3, Sherfong wouldn't have suffered so much damage in just one attack. Moreover, the combat standard of the magic soldier before him was actually at the flowing water realm. The magic soldier had a very accurate grasp of his location. Otherwise, with Sherfeng's speed, there was no way that attack could have cornered him and prevented him from dodging. As expected of the leader of a guild. You really are strong, the armored giant said as he eyed Sherfong. The armored giant then turned to a nearby armored giant and said, Ape, come over and help me. I want to see how long our dear guild leader here will be able to last against two of us. Sure thing. The armored giant wielding a great sword nodded. The battle axe-wielding armored giant launched a frenzied assault on Sherfong. Relying on his high HP and defense, the armored giant completely abandoned all forms of defense and simply focused on trading blows with Chiffon. The armored giant named Copper Ape dashed over from over 100 yards away. "Do not let that giant get close to the guild leader! MTs, stop him!" Aqua Rose hurriedly instructed. One armored giant was already more than enough to push Chiffon to his limits. If another armored giant joined the battle, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, the Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw members gave Zero Wings members no opportunity to assist Chiffon. They all persistently pinned down Zero Wings members. Cola, Turtledove, Yuwenyen, and Fire Dance, players capable of holding their own against the armored giants, were similarly tied up in battle and couldn't move away from their positions for the moment. In the end, Zero Wings members could only watch as the great sword-wielding armored giant closed in on Chiffon. Upon seeing that the armored giant named Copper Ape was about to reach him, Chiffon could not help but sigh. Due to the recent dungeon raid, he had already used all his berserk skills, which were still on cooldown. If he could use a berserk skill, even if his strength couldn't rival the armored giant's, he could rely on his techniques to suppress his opponent. Now, however, the disparity in strength was simply too great. I originally wanted to keep this a secret, but it seems there's no other choice now. Following which, Chiffon used Phantom Kill. Immediately after summoning his doppelganger, Chiffon sent it charging at Copper Ape. "You want to stop me with a measly doppelganger?" Copper Ape sneered. He then swung his great sword horizontally. His attack carried the strength, attack speed, and reaction speed of a Tier 3 player. Even a Tier 2 player would have great difficulty dodging his attack, not to mention a doppelganger controlled by a player. However, as Copper Ape's great sword neared Shifeng's doppelganger, a powerful mana torrent suddenly surged towards the doppelganger. When the great sword got within 3 yards of the doppelganger, its advance halted abruptly, and no matter how much more strength Copper Ape put into his arms, he couldn't push his weapon even an extra centimeter forward. A moment later, Shifeng's doppelganger gave a loud war cry. Its entire body then disintegrated and transformed into a bundle of pitch-black flames. The surging mana gathered madly in the pitch-black flames, causing the flames to flare up. In the next moment, a pitch-black claw covered in scales suddenly emerged from the gigantic bundle of flames. When the claw touched the ground immediately shattered and sank. Once the flames subsided, a 5-meter-tall dragon covered in pitch-black scales appeared in everyone's vision. Roar! Immediately after appearing, the black dragon let loose a powerful roar that echoed throughout the wetland forest, the horrific aura it released stifling the breath of every player on the battlefield. A dragon? Chapter 1815 Black Dragon's Might. Chapter 1815 Black Dragon's Might. Hellscythe_Lucky Old Cat. The black dragon's sudden appearance forced a gasp from the players on the battlefield. Although the black dragon was a lot smaller than an actual dragon, its aura was terrifying. Everyone could feel the massive difference between their life ratings and the black dragon's, a difference they had never felt from any creature they had encountered thus far in God's domain. Although most of the players present had likely never come across a real dragon, the various kingdoms and empires' libraries contained detailed records on dragons. Dragons had wiped out many kingdoms and empires throughout God's domain's long history. When a dragon appeared in an area, the area would instantly become a forbidden land for humans. Yet, a living black dragon stood before them. Moreover, when players tried to use an identification skill on the black dragon, the result confirmed that it was indeed a dragon. Why wouldn't these players be shocked and afraid? Black Dragon, High Lord. Level 67. HP 24, 000/24, 000. Wait! This dragon is only a High Lord. That's right! Although the dragon is high-leveled, it's only in the upper standards of Tier 2. It isn't even a Great Lord. That spooked me. I really thought that someone had summoned a powerful dragon. It turns out it's only a High Lord. Even our party can easily kill it. The Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw members who had trembled slightly with fear quickly realized that although the black dragon was a real dragon, it wasn't like the dragons in the records they had read. According to historical records, real dragons were Tier 4 mythic creatures at the very minimum. If such a dragon actually appeared before them, they'd likely run for their lives. None of them would have dared to linger. But since this was only a High Lord, the adventurer team's members discarded their worry. They had slain countless High Lords, including High Lord-ranked archaic species. "And here I thought you had summoned some kind of amazing monster, but it's just an immature dragon," Copper-Ape said, revealing a confident grin as he swung his great sword at the black dragon. Scram! The black smoke around the great sword formed a crescent as it sliced towards the black dragon. Tier 3 skill, Explosive Slash. The crescent energy beam tore through space itself as it moved. From afar, it looked as if the crescent beam had just cut through a sheet of black paper. The attack's immense aura was even stifling to nearby players. Just before the crescent beam devoured the black dragon, the creature extended a scaled claw to meet the attack. Pitch black flames then emerged and enveloped the massive claw. When the crescent beam crashed into the flaming claw, it seemed as if the beam had slammed into an adamantine wall. Not only had the attack abruptly halted, but the black dragon's claw also remained unharmed and stationary. Following which, the black dragon lightly pinched the crescent beam. Pun! Suddenly, the crescent beam shattered and dissipated as if it had never existed. That is impossible! Shock filled Copper-Ape's gaze as he watched his target nullify his explosive slash. He had just executed a Tier 3 skill. With his current strength and physique, he could easily suppress a great lord of the same level, much less a high lord. He had believed that, in the worst-case scenario, his attack would shake the black dragon slightly. Yet, the high lord-ranked black dragon before him had forced his attack to a stop. Moreover, the black dragon had shattered his Tier 3 skill. How could such a thing be possible? What's up with that black dragon? How did it receive that kind of attack without taking any damage? Veiled Spirit, who watched from afar, stared with wide eyes. So, this is a dragon's power? Unyielding Heart and Phoenix Rain were similarly thunderstruck when they saw the black dragon shatter the energy beam with a pinch. They could be considered quite knowledgeable about dragons, but even they were surprised. Now, they fully understood why dragons were destruction incarnate. Sure enough, a dragon's strength is really amazing. As Sherfone controlled his doppelganger, he could feel an inexhaustible power course through his entire body. He then turned to the magic soldier before him and said, "Your strength should be at the peak of Tier 3. Unfortunately, you're not a high enough level. Otherwise, you would have posed a threat. Since you've finished your attack, it's my turn." A dragon was invincible among creatures of the same tier. Even though the black dragon was only a High Lord, it was still a level 67 High Lord. In addition, the black dragon's life rating was incredibly high. It gained a massive amount of attributes with each leveled up. Meanwhile, the player before him was only level 55. With 12 additional levels, even a player's strength would undergo a qualitative transformation, not to mention a dragon. The level 67 High Lord-ranked Black Dragon was already more powerful than a level 55 Great Lord-ranked Black Dragon, and since dragons were invincible among the same tier, how could a Tier 3 magic soldier possibly be a match for such a creature? Furthermore, the magic soldier was an ancient weapon only meant to deal with high-tiered monsters. Before a true dragon, a magic soldier was garbage. When Sherfone finished speaking, he controlled the black dragon to open its maw and inhale a mouthful of air. A gigantic magic array then formed before the creature, gathering a massive amount of mana. A moment later, the black dragon released a deafening roar. Dragon breath. Immediately, pitch-black flames devoured Copper-Ape, extending up to 200 yards away from the black dragon. In the blink of an eye, a huge portion of the battlefield transformed into a fiery hell. Agonized screams echoed across the field as streaks of white light rose from the fiery hell. A single breath attack had burned over 100 players to ash. Once the flames dissipated, a huge divide tore the ground, forming a far more frightening hole than the one Glorious Will's myth of light had created. Even Sherfone, who was responsible for the attack, was surprised by the power of the black dragon's dragon breath. While the magic soldier before him was still alive, the armored giant had less than 100,000 HP remaining. The magic soldier's tough, black armor sported visible cracks. The battlefield had become deathly silent after witnessing the black dragon's horrific power. When Copper Ape gazed at the monster before him, fear filled his eyes. However, before Copper Ape could respond, Sherfone controlled the black dragon to pounce on and attack the gigantic player with a claw swipe. When the black dragon's claws slammed into Copper Ape's helmet, the player fell on his side, shattering the armor piece. Copper Ape instantly lost over 30,000 HP. Flames then erupted on the black dragon's other claw before the monster thrust it into the magic soldier's armored chest. The flaming claw penetrated the armor like a hot knife through butter, and Copper Ape screamed in pain as the black dragon's blazing claw thrust into him. Flames devoured Copper Ape's entire body, his remaining 44,000 HP plummeting. In the blink of an eye, Copper Ape's HP vanished, his body transforming into fire before it vanished. When the flames eventually subsided, only a deep crater remained. Chapter 1816 Level Suppression. Chapter 1816 Level Suppression. Hellscythe_Lucky Old Cat. The black dragon had turned the armored giant that was undefeatable just a moment ago into a pile of ashes. This scene caused the Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw members to fall into a daze. Many seconds later, they still couldn't wrap their minds around the fact that a magic soldier got killed. In contrast, Zero Wing's members were ecstatic. Amazing! All hail the guild leader! The powerful black dragon rekindled the Zero Wing members' hope of victory. With the black dragon's strength, the remaining 9 armored giants would be no problem. As for the other dark players, these people had been at a disadvantage previously. If not for the armored giant's interference, both the members of Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw would have long since been crushed already. So, this is the trump card Black Flame has been hiding all this time? Unyielding Heart could not help his shock at the defeat of one of the armored giants. He had never thought that Zero Wing actually possessed such a powerful foundation. The guild was revealing one trump card after another, each one more amazing than the former. Although the black dragon summoned was only a High Lord, the strength it displayed was far superior to an ordinary High Lords of the same level. How is this possible? A somber expression appeared on Veiled Spirit's face the moment she saw Copper Ape die. Had the black dragon spent a lot of time to defeat Copper Ape, she could have accepted this defeat. However, the battle had been so decisive that she simply couldn't. Copper Ape's combat power as a magic soldier was at the peak of Tier 3, yet he had been overwhelmed, unable to retaliate. For a moment, Veiled Spirit even doubted the authenticity of the magic soldier she was looking at. "Commander, what should we do now?" The female cleric standing beside Veiled Spirit asked hurriedly when she saw the black dragon charging toward the other magic soldiers. "Everyone, listen up! This black dragon is a summoned creature. As long as we kill its summoner, the black dragon will automatically disappear. Everyone, gather up and prioritize killing Black Flame," Veiled Spirit commanded hurriedly. In God's domain, most summoned creatures shared a common weakness, which was their summoner. Now that the black dragon was proven to be an unstoppable existence, their only hope of getting rid of the menace was to kill Black Flame, its summoner. So long as they killed Black Flame, they would regain the upper hand in the battlefield. After hearing Veiled Spirit's words, the Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw members reacted quickly, staring fiercely at Sherfone. Previously, they had been too shocked by the black dragon's prowess and had forgotten about the fatal flaw of summoned creatures. However, now that they had snapped out of their daze, they promptly charged at Sherfone one after another. Meanwhile, 3 of the remaining 9 magic soldiers moved to surround the black dragon to prevent it from helping Sherfone. "Kill him! He's alone! As long as he dies, victory will be ours!" Suddenly, over 100 players swarmed toward Sherfone, killing intent radiating from their eyes. "That's right! As long as we kill you, this black dragon will disappear!" Iron Blade, the leader of the Iron Blade team as well as the battle-axe-wielding armored giant that was fighting Sherfone earlier, shouted as he glared at Sherfone, who stood less than 15 yards away. He raised his battle axe into the air, then abruptly swung it down onto the ground before him. Die! Boom! In the next moment, 12 earthen spears jutted out from the ground around Shifeng and stabbed at the swordsman, each earthen spear carrying the full strength of the magic soldier. Meanwhile, Iron Blade raised his great axe and leaped into the air. He then slashed downward with his great axe as he descended toward Shifeng, his actions thoroughly sealing all of Shifeng's escape routes. However, Shifeng showed no intention of retreating. Instead, he activated Defensive Blade and swung his 2 swords to meet the approaching battle axe in battle. Boom! After Shifeng nullified the earthen spears and expended his Defensive Blade's block count completely, his swords came into contact with Iron Blade's battle axe. The swordsman's feet immediately sank deep into the ground. When everyone saw the outcome of the clash, however, they were thoroughly stupefied. Shifeng had received less than -2,000 damage from the clash. To any player on the battlefield right now, this amount of damage was practically negligible. After all, they all had several tens of thousands of HP. What's going on? Why is his strength so much more than before? Iron Blade stared at Shifeng in confusion. He could not understand why Shifeng had lost so little HP during their clash this time. Sure enough, it still isn't possible to match a magic soldier even with the attribute bonus provided by Heavenly Dragon's Breath. Shifeng could not help but reveal a bitter smile when he looked at his vibrating swords. When he summoned the Black Dragon, Dragon's domination had taken effect. For every dragon present within a 1,000-yard radius, Dragon's domination increased all of his basic attributes by 500 points each. By performing Strength Combination in this buff state, he had managed to drastically reduce the damage he took from Iron Blade this time. However, when going up against a Tier 3 magic soldier, he could execute Strength Combination only for defensive purposes. Using the technique offensively was impossible. Strength Combination was a very sophisticated technique. Even the slightest mistake could lead to failure. Meanwhile, the Tier 3 magic soldier possessed a Tier 3 physique. What with Iron Blade being a flowing water realm expert, the Berserker could deal with an offensive strength combination very easily. Trying to use the technique in an attack would only do Shifeng more harm than good. Not to mention, his defense and HP were significantly lower than Iron Blade's. Facing off against Iron Blade in a direct clash would only bring on an earlier death. I want to see just how many times you can block my attacks. Iron Blade also understood Shifeng's present state. Right now, all he needed to do was one thing: maneuver his attacks through the swordsman's defenses. Strength Combination was an extremely complex technique. Trying to use it in a high-speed battle only made the technique even more difficult to execute. The moment Shifeng slipped up, he would die. I am indeed unable to block your attacks that many times. However, you can't possibly be thinking that this is a one-on-one duel, right? Shifeng said as he looked at Iron Blade's battle axe approaching him once again. He used Divine Steps and switched positions with the farthest doppelganger, then retrieved a scroll from his bag and activated it. A moment later, a golden-haired beauty wearing long, silver robes and holding a crystalline staff appeared before Shifeng. Due to the presence of this woman, the density of the ambient mana increased slightly. Meanwhile, the woman herself gave off a pressure that instilled fear in those enveloped in it. This new arrival was none other than Anna, Shifeng's personal guard. As personal guards also took up a slot when entering a team dungeon, Shifeng couldn't summon Anna to his raid team of 200 players while raiding the Eclipse throne, which was a 200-man team dungeon. More importantly, if personal guards participated in a team dungeon raid, a successful clear would not count as a first clear. Hence, Shifeng had not bothered bringing Anna and Kite out even though both of them would have been powerful helpers. However, now that he was out of the dungeon, such restrictions no longer applied. At this point, Anna was already a level 85, Tier 2 NPC. Aside from her basic attributes, the powerful pressure she exerted on the players present was due to level suppression. Get rid of them! Shifeng commanded, pointing at the magic soldier before him. As you wish! Anna nodded and started chanting an incantation. Reacting to the situation, Iron Blade immediately swung his battle axe at Anna. In response, Anna lightly tapped the butt of her staff on the ground. A golden barrier spread out from her staff, pushing Iron Blade over 20 yards away. By the time Iron Blade shattered this barrier, Anna had already summoned a level 85 Golden Giant and 10 level 85 Rock Guardians. She then proceeded to buff their attributes. With just one punch, the level 85 Golden Giant sent the level 55 Magic Soldier stumbling backward by several steps. The disparity in strength resulting from the difference in levels was massive. The enemy players charging towards Sherfone gasped involuntarily at this scene. Meanwhile, the 10 level 85 Rock Guardians stood guard around Sherfone, their posture daunting the approaching Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw members, who halted their charge. Although the level suppression system had been tuned down over several system updates, it had not weakened to the point of negligibility. After the difference exceeded 15 levels, the effects of level suppression would become significant. Meanwhile, there was currently a gap of 30 levels between the Dark players and the Rock Guardians. "Do you think you all can come and go as you please?" Sherfone sneered as he glanced at the members of the two Dark Adventurer teams that were previously charging at him. "All of you should just stay here forever." He then had the 10 Rock Guardians attack the backtracking players. Faced with a bunch of level 50+ to 1 Dragonite players, the level 85 Rock Guardians were able to send a couple flying with every punch. Due to the level suppression, the players' defense had weakened considerably. Even Tier 1 Shield Warriors and Guardian Knights couldn't withstand the blows of the Rock Guardians, and were sent flying with a punch. Meanwhile, after fighting for some time, the Black Dragon Sherfone controlled finally killed one of the 3 magic soldiers, pinning it down. Now, the Black Dragon thoroughly suppressed the 2 remaining magic soldiers, each of its normal attacks taking away over 20,000 HP from the magic soldiers and over 50,000 if it used a skill. At the moment, the magic soldiers and the other players belonging to the 2 Dark Adventurer teams were getting massacred. "Commander, we've lost nearly half of our members already. Are we still going to continue fighting?" the female cleric standing beside Veiled Spirit asked. From Black Shark's death until now, only a little over a minute had passed, yet they had already lost so many of their members. By the time reinforcements arrived, their entire adventurer team would be annihilated. After pondering for a brief moment, Veiled Spirit gritted her teeth before reluctantly shouting, "Retreat! Have everyone pull away from the battlefield as quickly as possible." The report they'd received regarding Zero Wing was outrageously inaccurate. Right now, she wanted nothing more than to charge into the Starlight Corporation's guild hall and choke the members of the corporation's intelligence unit to death. Zero Wing's current performance was completely different from what was reported, so much so that she suspected the report was actually about an entirely different guild. Chapter 1817 Eclipse Gate Shaken. Chapter 1817 Eclipse Gate Shaken. Hellscythe_Lucky Old Cat. The Golden Giant and Rock Guardian's sudden participation turned the situation around, giving the 3 guilds an overwhelming advantage. After hearing Veiled Spirit's command to retreat, both the Shadow Claw and Dark Hunters members scattered and fled the battlefield. However, Sherfone had no intention of letting the 2 adventurer teams get away, and he ordered his team to give chase and kill as many enemy players as possible. If not for the fact that their team fully consisted of the 3 guilds' Tier 2 players, Zero Wing would have definitely suffered a severe loss from this ambush. The guilds had also gotten lucky that the 2 adventurer teams that had ambushed them weren't capable of using their trump cards to their full potential. If the Dark Hunters had also brought 200 Tier 2 players, and they all consumed the basic Dragon Potion, they would have been extremely difficult to deal with. If Zero Wing's members fought Tier 2 Dragonite players, in Sherfeng's opinion, only Gentle Snow, Fire Dance, Cola, Violet Cloud, Zhao Yueru, and Aqua Rose would be guaranteed to win a one-on-one fight. Everyone else would have a 50% chance at best. Shadow Claw's magic soldiers shouldn't be underestimated either. Unless one amassed a large number of magic soldiers, they wouldn't be able to exhibit their abilities in full. 10 magic soldiers simply weren't enough to display their true power. Magic soldiers would only be able to activate the magic arrays on their armor when 100 stood together. If those magic arrays activated, the 100 magic soldiers could even trample over 20 Tier 4 mythic monsters of the same level. At one point in the past, 100 magic soldiers had joined a battlefield of Tier 2 players. The magic soldiers had been killing machines, allowing a first-rate guild to fend off a sieging superpower and defend its town successfully. When players fought each other in God's domain, it was practically impossible for one side to push the other to the brink of extinction in a single battle. After all, the world of God's domain was not reality. Players could resurrect after dying. Hence, players generally had to undergo a long fight, whittling their opponent's strength down until their opponent could no longer resist. Although it was impossible to exterminate the adventurer teams, now that the two adventurer teams had scattered and run, Silverwing needed to do everything in his power to weaken the adventurer teams. This way, it would take the two adventurer teams a lot more time to recover. However, after the removal of Dark Precinct, it became extremely difficult to catch up with the escaping Dark players. To make matters worse, the marshy forest layout was extremely complex. As a result, the fleeing Dark players escaped the three guilds' pursuit very quickly. Only the guild's rangers and assassins could continue the chase. The other classes had to watch on, powerless, as their targets disappeared. In less than a minute, the two Dark Adventurer team's members had thoroughly disappeared into the dense forest. "Commander, the other adventurer team's commanders say that they'll arrive soon, and they're asking about the battle's situation," the female cleric following Veiled Spirit reported. "How should we respond to them? What's the situation?" Veiled Spirit frowned, fury on her face as she continued. "Tell them that they can fight all they want. Shadow Claw will take no part in this." The female cleric was speechless. However, she more or less understood her commander's mood. Shadow Claw had suffered severe losses in this battle. This was the first time their adventure team had suffered so drastically. Moreover, the information the Starline Corporation had given to them had been painfully inaccurate. It was only natural for Veiled Spirit to be furious. The female cleric immediately conveyed Veiled Spirit's reply, word for word, to the commanders of the various approaching adventurer teams. "Commander, it seems Shadow Claw's commander is somewhat angry, saying that Shadow Claw is pulling out of this hunt, and that we can go ahead and continue the fight if we want. The Dark Hunters have also left the area. Should we continue forward? This is interesting. It seems both Shadow Claw and Dark Hunters have suffered quite a loss at the hands of Zero Wing. Since that is the case, let us return." When the other approaching adventurer teams received Veiled Spirit's reply, they all gave up on the thought of encircling Zero Wing. Both Shadow Claw and Dark Hunters were top-ranking adventurer teams in Dark Soul. If even these two adventurer teams had suffered a major loss after attacking Zero Wing, then their adventurer teams would definitely fail. Naturally, there was no longer a need to assault Zero Wing. Meanwhile, before the forest surrounding the Eclipse throne, "Guild leader, they are simply too fast. They're like monkeys. We lost track of them as soon as they entered the forest," Blackie said, stomping his foot in frustration and anger when he could no longer see the two Dark Adventurer teams. "This really is awful. I barely managed to kill 20 people." Hearing Blackie's words, Unyielding Soul and Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's members shot the Cursemancer scornful looks. Every one of their opponents had been an expert, not an ordinary player. They had been fortunate to kill 3 to 5 players in this battle. Defeating an expert and actually killing one were two different things. Normally, one would be hard-pressed to stop an expert's escape. Some experts even had life-saving tools to help them flee dangerous situations. If the two adventurer teams heard Blackie's words, they'd cough blood in anger. "All right, the battle's over. Everyone, loot the battlefield quickly. It's best if we don't linger," Silverwing said through the team chat. He knew a little about the Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw, both of which belonged to the Dark Alliance known as Dark Soul. The adventurer teams capable of joining Dark Soul were all top adventurer teams. During its peak, Dark Soul had included over 40 adventurer teams. The Alliance had been stronger than any one of the 6 great Dark Guilds in God's domain in the past. Although Dark Soul had yet to reach its peak, it should have around 10 or so adventurer teams at the very least. Since 2 of Dark Soul's adventurer teams had appeared here, he could not rule out the possibility that the Alliance's other adventurer teams would as well. His team was already exhausted. There were fewer than 140 players still alive. Trying to fight several more Dark Adventurer teams now would result in greater losses. Unyielding Heart and Phoenix Rain nodded in agreement. They then instructed their subordinates to clean up the battlefield swiftly and leave the area. Shortly after Shifeng's team left the area, several dozen players emerged the dense forest. However, these players were from the various Dark Adventurer teams. Rather, they were independent players that had come to the jungle to grind energy essence. Silverwing is too amazing. That was the first time I've seen such an amazing battle. Indeed. Despite only having a 200-man team, Silverwing repelled an army of over 2,000 experts. This result is simply absurd. Rumors really can't be believed. Silverwing is way stronger than the rumors make it out to be. Some of my friends have been urging me to join a first-rate guild, but looking at it now, it seems that Silverwing would be a better choice. Ha! I recorded the entire battle. Once I return, I'm going to boast the heck out of this at the bar. These independent players' eyes glowed with excitement as they looked at the direction Shifeng and the others disappeared to. While they did not know the identities of the 2 adventurer teams that attacked Silverwing's team, they knew that those players had been experts based on their combat standards. Yet, despite these 2,000-plus experts revealing one trump card after another, Silverwing's victory had been decisive. Naturally, the independent players had no intentions of keeping the battle a secret. Immediately, they posted the videos they had recorded on the official forums, allowing every player in the Eclipse Gate to view them. What's going on? 2 superpowers are fighting near the Eclipse throne? Wait, isn't that Silverwing? Did some superpower try to ambush their team? Silverwing's gentle snow is so strong. She killed nearly 100 people in one hit. When the public saw the independent players' video, their blood boiled with excitement. The standard of the battle between Silverwing and the 2 Dark Adventurer teams was unprecedented. The battle had completely shattered their understanding of guild wars. Other kingdoms' independent players, in particular, gained newfound recognition of Silverwing. They had never thought that Star Moon Kingdom's ruling guild would be so powerful. News of this battle also reached the various major powers' intelligence members. These intelligence members relayed the information to their respective upper echelons immediately. Chapter 1818 Comparable to a first-rate guild? Chapter 1818 Comparable to a first-rate guild? Hellscythe _ Lucky Old Cat. Dark Knight Empire, Light Shadow Citadel. A lofty tower sat in the middle of the city, and hovering above this tower was a gigantic, dark purple crystal. The crystal created a magic barrier that enveloped the city, and the crystal could be seen clearly by the large number of players walking throughout the streets. There were also a large number of NPCs and dark creatures, such as demons, abyssal demonkin, vampires. The multiracial population in Light Shadow City far surpassed that of Kingdom's dark cities. Many neutral race NPCs hawked their wares along the city streets, a sight that was even rare in other empires' dark cities. Light Shadow City was no less prosperous than Dark Knight City, the Dark Knight Empire's capital. Moreover, Light Shadow City had a wider variety of races. Meanwhile, a luxurious, 5-story tall mansion stood in the city's lively central district. A large number of players came and went from the mansion, and all of them were either extravagantly dressed merchant players or level 54+ experts. When the players in line outside of the mansion saw these merchant and expert players, they couldn't help but feel a little envious. These players' levels and equipment are amazing. They're even better than the experts in first-rate guilds. That's only natural. Although Dark Soul is an alliance, not a guild, it periodically raids team dungeons. The alliance also frequently plunders the various large guilds' elite teams and main forces. Of course, its members have excellent weapons and equipment. Moreover, despite such banditry, the various large guilds are utterly powerless to do anything about it. For example, one first-rate guild went all out to deal with Dark Soul, but in the end, the alliance had annihilated its army, and the guild was eventually forced to disband. That's right. It was due to that success that Dark Soul is holding a mass recruitment. When I heard about it, I dropped what I was doing and came here. It would be great if I could join the Alliance. If we get to join Dark Soul, we'll be able to move through the Dark Knight Empire and the several neighboring kingdoms unhindered. Even the various dark guilds will have to treat us with respect. In addition, if we join one of the top 5 adventurer teams after joining Dark Soul, such as Shadow Claw, the Copper Eagle Kingdom's #1 Dark Adventurer team, or Dark Hunters, which has recently become famous in the Dark Knight Empire, will be set for life. I hope I can get into one of the top 5 adventurer teams too. It's a pity that the requirements are extremely high. At the very least, you'll need to reach the Trial Tower's 6th floor or reach the 5th floor's late stage and have a specialty. The several thousand Dark players outside of the mansion quietly discussed their desire to join Dark Soul. In the Dark Knight Empire and its several neighboring kingdoms, Dark Soul enjoyed a status rivaling that of super first-rate guilds and super guilds. Moreover, unlike most dark guilds and dark adventurer teams, Dark Soul wasn't afraid of a confrontation with the various large guilds. It even dared to challenge 2 super first-rate guilds simultaneously. To dark players, who were always forced into hiding, this was a freedom they hungered for. Now that Dark Soul was recruiting members, independent dark players like themselves couldn't miss this opportunity. Meanwhile, inside an office on the mansion's topmost floor, a young man stood by the office's window. As the young man observed the independent players outside of the mansion, a grin spread across his face. This man was none other than Tiger Breaker, Dark Soul's Alliance Master. Alliance Master, since we announced the recruitment, over 2,000 players have passed our tests already. In addition, over 30 well-known adventurer teams have applied to join us. With these new recruits, once we receive the resources the Starline Corporation promised, we'll be able to nurture 2 or 3 well-equipped expert legions quickly. A level 55 male elementalist wielding a withered wooden staff reported. Good. Pathless, you've done well this time. As long as the other adventurer teams deal with Zero Wing, we won't have any problems acquiring the promised resources. Tiger Breaker said, smiling. Alliance Master, you can rest assured. I've heard that Black Shark and the others have discovered the whereabouts of Zero Wing's upper echelons. The Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw have already left to set up the ambush. I believe Zero Wing will suffer severely. Once we receive the confirmation, the Starline Corporation will definitely be satisfied with our performance, and pay us a portion of the agreed resources up front. The level 55 elementalist named Pathless said, smiling. Once the Starline Corporation delivered the promised resources, Dark Soul would become the Dark Knight Empire's Dark Overlord. Once it achieved that goal, Dark Soul could then secure its sovereignty over all of God's domain's dark forces. While Tiger Breaker and Pathless conversed, Pathless received a message. After reading it, however, his complexion paled. Has something happened? Tiger Breaker asked curiously when he noticed Pathless' gloomy expression. I just received a message stating that the adventurer teams that went to Star Moon Kingdom to deal with Zero Wing are preparing to return, Pathless said. Return? They've dealt with Zero Wing already? Tiger Breaker could not help his surprise. No, that's not right. Zero Wing is a large guild, comparable to a first-rate guild. It is impossible to deal with it so quickly. What happened? Zero Wing has dealt a heavy blow to the Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw. Both adventurer teams have lost over half of their people. According to Veiled Spirit, the information Starline provided was horrendously inaccurate. The Zero Wing they encountered was an entirely different guild than what the reports had mentioned. Due to this unexpected development, the various adventurer teams' commanders have decided to return to Light Shadow City and discuss the matter further, Pathless said quietly. How is that possible? That's Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw we're talking about. They simply left to deal with Zero Wing's main force. How could they possibly lose? They even lost over half of their teams. Tiger Breaker stared at Pathless in shock. Also, what does Veiled Spirit mean that Zero Wing is a different guild? Alliance Master, these are the battle videos some of the players had recorded. Why don't you take a look? The situation confused Pathless as well. following which, he forwarded the videos he had received from his subordinate to Tiger Breaker. Battle videos? Tiger Breaker began to examine the videos after he received them. The first video showed the 2,000-plus members from the Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw Adventurer teams using trump cards that even surprised Tiger Breaker. Another video showed a female berserker killing Black Shark in a matter of seconds. Said female berserker had also killed nearly 100 players with one attack. The final video showed Shurfong summoning a black dragon and killing a magic soldier in just a few seconds. The swordsman had also summoned his personal guard, rampaging and slaughtering the two Dark Adventurer teams and forcing them into a disadvantageous position. This is Starline's so-called comparable to a first-rate guild? Tiger Breaker's face flushed with anger as he watched the videos. Are Starline's intelligence members sleeping on the job? How is this comparable to a first-rate guild? A first-rate guild's main force can wipe out two of Dark Soul's top-ranking adventurer teams? Pathless, contact Lu Xinglua and tell him that if he wants to get rid of Zero Wing, he'll have to triple the pay we agreed on. Otherwise, this transaction is over. Understood. I'll contact him right away. Pathless was just as furious after watching the videos. He felt that the Starline Corporation had toyed with Dark Soul. Chapter 1819 Advanced Smithy Dark Knight Empire, Dark Knight City. Chapter 1819 Advanced Smithy Dark Knight Empire, Dark Knight City. Hellscythe_Lucky Old Cat. The city's central district bustled with activity and traffic. Players also crowded the shops along the streets. Players from other cities and kingdoms constantly visited these shops to purchase items. The Dark Knight Empire's businesses were far more popular than those in the neighboring kingdoms. In those kingdoms' capitals, level 50 secret silver equipment was rare on the market, but in Dark Knight City, such equipment was common. Some shops even sold level 50 fine gold equipment only. The prices for those items were absurdly high, way above market value. Due to Dark Knight City's prosperity, many players from neighboring kingdoms brought their treasures here to sell. This made the city a hub for precious treasure. The various large guilds operating in the neighboring kingdoms had even stationed some players in Dark Knight City long-term to search for purchase opportunities. Kingdom's capitals simply couldn't compare to the Dark Knight City's liveliness. Meanwhile, a towering guild hall loomed in the center of the city's central district. The guild residents occupied an area large enough to house a stadium that could accommodate tens of thousands of people. Not only would one need a high enough status to purchase such a large plot of land, but they'd also need a frightening number of coins. The land's base price was 50,000 gold, and it was one of the few spacious lands available in Dark Knight City's central district. This guild residence is so luxurious. The owner has even built a 5-story restaurant in it. This is ridiculous. I've heard it costs quite a lot to build a restaurant in a guild residence. Such a massive restaurant should cost at least 10,000 gold to build. 10,000 gold? Aren't you looking down on Starlink a little too much? The Starline Corporation established the guild. Including the building's various accessories, Starlink has spent a total of 20,000 gold to build this restaurant. The guild also built training rooms with magic array enhancements. I've heard that the mana density inside these training rooms is much higher than that of the outside world. You'll be far more efficient when training in those rooms. It's a pity that only Starlink's members can enjoy this benefit. Then, why don't we just join Starlink? A newcomer like you? Join Starlink? Starlink is one of the top 3 guilds of the Dark Knight Empire. It's no weaker than super first-rate guilds like Crimson Emperor or Unyielding Soul. Although Starlink is mass recruiting right now, it is still out of reach for a newbie like you. While the players near Starlink's residence discussed the guild, a team of 100 players atop leopards turned onto the street. The 100-man team wore exquisite uniforms and radiated majestic auras. Many experts watched the team of players enter Starlink's residence in awe, dreaming of joining that team in the future. The 100-man team was Starlink's main force, and not long ago, the main force had defeated a level 50, 100-man team dungeon's 4th boss. Now, the team only needed to defeat the final boss to complete the 100-man team dungeon. This raid progression could already rival that of the Dark Knight Empire's two super first-rate guilds. Meanwhile, 3 people stood in the guild leader's office in Starlink's guild hall. These 3 watched the guild's main force, which had just returned from a dungeon raid, from a window. Guild leader, we have now caught up with Unyielding Soul's raid progress. Now, it is only a matter of time before we surpass Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor. A level 55, Tier 2 male shield warrior carrying a silver cross shield across his back said, laughing as he turned to Lu Xingluo, who wore a set of black robes. Due to Starlink acquiring a share of the secret pavilion's magic crystal vein, the guild acquired a large number of magic crystals every day. This allowed the guild to sustain the magic arrays powering the guild's training rooms. With this, the guild's experts could continuously train and improve rapidly. Once the guild had accumulated enough Tier 2 players, it was only a matter of time before they obtained the first clear of the level 50, 100-man team dungeon they were raiding. Now that their guild didn't have to worry about magic crystals, they were able to nurture guild experts much faster. In 1 or 2 months, Starlink might even surpass Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul's expert count, becoming the Dark Knight Empire's #1 guild. Not bad. The struggle for the Thorn Fortress is about to start. For a while, divert all of the magic crystals we obtain to nurturing as many Tier 2 players as possible. I want to see how Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul intend to compete with Starlink when we obtain the management rights to Thorn Fortress. Lu Xingluo said, smiling. Understood. Guild leader, rest assured, I'll make sure that we have more Tier 2 experts than Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul by the time the struggle begins. The shield warrior promised. As Lu Xingluo was about to discuss their plans for the struggle over Thorn Fortress, he received a message notification. A message from Dark Soul? Lu Xingluo muttered when he noticed the sender's identity. By the time he finished reading the message, his expression had darkened. Have the people from Dark Soul gone mad? They're actually tripling their price to deal with a small guild like Zero Wing? Guild leader, we just received a message as well. It seems that Dark Soul's members have ambushed Zero Wing's main force. However, Dark Soul's members suffered a disastrous defeat and lost over half of its numbers. I suspect that this has something to do with their new demands. Dawn Webb, a level 55, Tier 2 female elementalist and the third person in the room, explained. You're saying that Dark Soul tried to ambush Zero Wing, but the guild turned the tables on them? For a moment, Lu Xingluo thought he had heard wrong. How is that possible? It's true. Some people have posted the battle videos on the Eclipse Gate's official forums. Almost everyone in the Eclipse Gate is talking about it, Dawn Webb said as she forwarded a few battle videos to Lu Xingluo. So, that is the case. Lu Xingluo could not help his frown as he watched the recordings. No wonder why a measly bug dares to oppose me. Guild leader, are we still going to take care of Zero Wing? Dawn Webb asked. Of course, Lu Xingluo said determinedly. But before we do, we have to secure the Thorn Fortress. Sender replied to Dark Soul, tell them that they can forget about tripling the price. I'm not going to triple their pay just because they got scratched. However, I am willing to tweak the conditions of our agreement. As long as they annihilate Zero Wing, I'll give them an additional 5% of Thorn Fortress's shares. Also, tell Tiger Breaker that Zero Wing doesn't have any backers. Since Zero Wing is so strong, it must have a massive secret. If he doesn't want that secret, he better not regret his choices once Starlink claims it. He was very familiar with the Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw's strength in Dark Soul. They were merely the 4th and 5th ranked adventurer teams in the Alliance. Dark Soul was only defeated due to misinformation, yet Tiger Breaker wanted to use this opportunity to hike up the price. Understood. Dawn Webb nodded before contacting Dark Soul's representative. While Lu Xingluo discussed Zero Wing, the various superpowers had discovered the battle in the Eclipse Gate. The outcome further increased Zero Wing's fame among the various superpowers. At the same time, the guild had attracted a lot of attention. For a guild of Zero Wing's caliber, it was simply absurd to have so many Tier 2 players. The guild was definitely hiding something major. For a time, the various superpowers re-evaluated their opinions of Zero Wing. Rather than an ant, Zero-Wing had become a fat piece of meat. Relay my commands. Order our subordinates to investigate the secret to Zero-Wing's success. After watching the battle between Zero-Wing and Dark Soul, many superpowers upper echelons issued the same command. Meanwhile, Sherfong had already rested and paid Silverwing Town a visit. Guild leader, I have brought the 50 advanced architects you asked for. Melancholic Smile said as she approached Sherfong, who surveyed an empty plot of land. The 50 advanced architects following Melancholic Smile could not help their growing nerves as they looked at Sherfong. They were confused about why their guild leader had gathered them all here. With so many advanced architects, one could construct an entire basic town. Good. I've gathered you all here today to build the construction on this design, Sherfong said. He then retrieved a stack of old parchment from his bag. This stack was none other than the advanced Smithy design. Chapter 1820 Upgrading Silverwing Town. Chapter 1820 Upgrading Silverwing Town. An advanced Smithy? Melancholic Smile could not help her surprise when she saw the description of the design Sherfong took out. At this point in time, she was quite knowledgeable about advanced constructions. Every advanced construction had functions that far surpassed their basic counterparts. Moreover, they had their own specialties. However, designs for advanced constructions were extremely difficult to acquire. Although Melancholic Smile was initially excited at the identity of the design, seeing the materials and space needed to construct the advanced smithy dampened her mood quickly. The advanced smithy required not only 2,000 pieces of extremely valuable mana ore but also 1,000 advanced magic cores and 500 earthfire crystals. The mana ore required wasn't too much of a problem, as Zero-Wing had collected quite an amount during this period. As for the advanced magic core, it was a rare material that could be obtained only from the bosses of level 50 and above team dungeons. However, the drop rate wasn't 100%, so it was extremely valuable. On the market, one advanced magic core sold for 5 gold. 1,000 advanced magic cores would mean 5,000 gold. As for the earthfire crystal, it was even more valuable, as it could be acquired only in the fields, particularly mountainous regions with fiery environments. It was one of the main materials needed to produce high-ranking fire resistance equipment. Although the market value of earthfire crystal was roughly 5 gold, due to its rarity and the demand, it was almost impossible to find large quantities of earthfire crystal for sale. Currently, Zero-Wing had only a little over 600 earthfire crystals stockpiled. Spending 500 crystals in one go would deplete the guild's inventory. Aside from the 3 aforementioned materials, the advanced smithy also needed 10,000 magic crystals to construct. The total cost of its construction came to roughly 30,000 gold. Currently, Zero-Wing was developing rapidly and needed to spend money on various fronts. If not for Zero-Wing City, the guild wouldn't have been able to keep up with its expenditures. Hence, spending 30,000 gold's worth of rare materials to construct an advanced smithy truly wasn't a wise course of action. However, before Melancholic Smile could try to dissuade Sherfong, he had already distributed the tasks to the advanced architects. He even had the necessary materials prepared already. All the 50 advanced architects needed to do was build the structure. Although Zero-Wing's main force had suffered some casualties and lost 20-odd pieces of equipment in the battle with the 2 Dark Adventurer teams, the spoils of war they gained were far more valuable. The members of Dark Hunters and Shadow Claw were experts among experts. They were all geared in excellent equipment that was only slightly inferior to Zero-Wing's. However, while the quality of the equipment Zero-Wing looted was indeed slightly inferior to the equipment it lost, the quantity easily made up for the poorer quality. In total, Zero-Wing had gained over 400 pieces of level 50 secret silver equipment, and 60+ pieces of level 50 fine gold equipment. After deducting the compensations and rewards given out, Zero-Wing had still netted more than 10,000 gold from that single battle. However, even if one had 10,000 gold, they would be hard-pressed to acquire so many pieces of up-to-date top-tier equipment. Although the profits from this battle were not enough to cover the construction cost of the advanced smithy served a great purpose. As an advanced construction, it could elevate the prosperity and popularity of a town by a significant margin. At this point, Silverwing Town already possessed sufficient basic constructions and security to get upgraded into an intermediate town. Now, it just had to accumulate sufficient popularity and prosperity. However, constructing the advanced smithy wasn't an easy task. Aside from advanced architects, it needed one player capable of drawing advanced magic arrays because the advanced smithy required the inscription of many magic arrays. For the following period, Silverwing could be seen busily inscribing magic arrays onto the constructed walls and floors of the advanced smithy. Someone looking at Silverwing Town from some distance away would notice that a section of the town's outer area had suddenly been cordoned off and something big was under construction there. This situation immediately attracted the attention of many resting players. Nowadays, Silverwing Town had already become the most popular town in the Orc Empire. Many guild players seeking to grind in the Orc Empire or raid the teleportation war fortresses chose to rest in Silverwing Town. Even though the war fortresses in question were very far away from Silverwing Town, players still chose Silverwing Town over other guild towns in the Orc Empire. One reason for this was the EXP buff that players could accumulate by resting in Silverwing Town, which would help greatly in leveling up. Another reason was the battle arena in the town. However, contrary to expectations, the high mana environment of Silverwing Town wasn't the reason why its battle arena was popular. Instead, the main reason for its popularity was the fact that the town was now a hub for players originating from various kingdoms and empires. Due to this situation, experts from different countries could spar with each other. Being able to spar with a large number of different experts of the same combat standard was a tremendous benefit for experts seeking to improve themselves. Now that Silverwing Town had already become the #1 town in the Orc Empire, if not for the limited space, its player population could easily exceed 1,500,000. Damn! Silverwing Town is already crowded enough, yet Zero Wing is actually wasting such a large, empty space on another building. That's right! With the number of buildings in the town continuously increasing, the number of players the town can accommodate will keep declining. I'm not even sure if I can squeeze my way into the town tomorrow. The players resting in a nearby bar could not help but frown when they saw the stadium-sized structure under construction. There were simply too many players trying to enter Silverwing Town right now. To make sure Silverwing Town operated normally, Zero Wing had made it so that players who weren't Zero Wing members could stay in Silverwing Town for only 10 hours a day. If players refused to leave the town once their allocated time was up, the NPC soldiers would either forcibly remove them from the town or outright kill them. Yet, despite this restriction, Silverwing Town was still packed all day round. At this point, Zero Wing had limited the number of players allowed inside the town at one time to just 800,000. If latecomers wished to enter the town, they would have to wait for someone to exit it. Hence, as more buildings rose in the empty spaces in town, the number of players allowed in would be reduced. Time passed quickly. When Silverwing finished inscribing the last magic array, 8 hours had already elapsed. The 50 advanced architects had taken only 4 hours to construct the physical structure of the advanced smithy. It's finally done. Silverwing sighed ruefully as he looked at the completed advanced smithy. Although the smithy had only 3 floors in total, it was over 20 meters in height. The advanced smithy before him was definitely a cut above basic smithies, which were only 4 meters in height. This was something that could be seen from the building's external appearance alone. However, the inside of the building was even more amazing. As Silverwing had personally inscribed every magic array, he had a general idea of the magic array's abilities. The advanced smithy could not only repair and produce custom-made weapons and equipment, but also break down weapons and equipment, and return to players some materials used to make those items. Players could then use the reclaimed materials for new weapons and equipment. Although the recovery rate wasn't very high, it was still better than selling obsolete items to NPCs. If he revealed this ability, countless players would definitely swarm to the advanced smithy to break down their obsolete weapons and equipment. Meanwhile, Zero Wing could charge a small fee for the service. Good. Let's get it running now. Silverwing then called up the advanced smithy system interface, and chose to open the building to the public. In the next moment, the magic curtain surrounding the construction site disappeared, exposing the massive building to the public. At the same time, the sound of a system notification entered Shifeng's ears. System: Silverwing Town's popularity and security have fulfilled the requirements of an intermediate town. Do you wish to upgrade Silverwing Town? Wonderful! Just as I expected. Shifeng could not help feeling joyful when he heard the system notification. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time now. He immediately chose to upgrade Silverwing Town. Chapter 1821 Crimson Flame Fortress. Chapter 1821 Crimson Flame Fortress. A series of system notifications assaulted Shifeng's hearing after he chose to upgrade Silverwing Town. Orc Empire Region System Announcement. Congratulations to Silverwing Town for becoming the first intermediate town in a neutral map. Rewarding 10,000 town popularity points and 1 caravan guard order. Silverwing Town Region System Announcement. Silverwing Town will undergo a promotion. All players will be teleported out of the town in 1 minute. Silverwing Town Region System Announcement. Silverwing Town's promotion will take 30 minutes. Please wait patiently until it is complete. The system announcements repeated 3 times, echoing in players' ears in their respective regions. What? A promotion? They're already upgrading Silverwing Town? How did Zero Wing do it? Amazing! Once the town is upgraded, we'll have a much easier time getting in. For a time, Silverwing Town's players were in an uproar over the sudden promotion. As for the various large guilds' upper echelons, they wore solemn expressions when they received a report on this matter. The fat piece of meat that was Silverwing Town had already been tempting to the various major powers, and they had been trying to find a way to claim it for themselves, but the improvement speed of the town's defenses was simply absurd. The NPC soldiers the town had recruited were also becoming increasingly powerful. Including the 5 magic towers, none of these superpowers felt powerful enough to capture Silverwing Town. Hence, they decided to continue accumulating their strength for now. However, Silverwing Town's promotion to an intermediate town was a huge problem. Not only would Silverwing Town be able to construct more defensive structures, but the number of NPC soldiers it could hire had also increased from 1,000 to 2,000. That would effectively double the town's defensive capabilities. In terms of basic attributes, NPC soldiers were far superior to players. In addition, Silverwing Town's soldiers were more than 10 levels higher than current players. If players wished to deal with these NPCs, they would have to employ Zerg tactics. Now that the town had twice as many NPC soldiers to protect it, they would need at least twice the manpower to defeat these NPCs, making Silverwing Town even more difficult to capture. Shortly after the system announcements, the players in Silverwing Town were all teleported a considerable distance away. However, instead of leaving the area, the teleported players stood outside of the town. In fact, players who grinded in the Orc Empire hurried to join the crowd. Meanwhile, news of Silverwing Town's promotion quickly spread to the various superpowers. Zero Wing is impressively efficient. It's a pity that there's no longer a point in upgrading Silverwing Town, Yuan Tiexin said, sighing slightly when he read the report he had just received. Uncle Yuan, now that Silverwing Town has been upgraded to an intermediate town, it will be able to accommodate more players and increase Zero Wing's income by multiple times. Why would that be pointless? Purple Jade asked curiously. I guess it's expected that you don't know. Yesterday, I received news stating that 9 Dragons Emperor has secretly joined hands with Blackwater and Beast Emperor, and they are preparing to raid the Orc Empire's Crimson Flame Fortress, Yuan Tiexin said. The Crimson Flame Fortress is located in the Orc Empire's inner region and on one of the safer paths to the Orc capital city. In addition, the fortress offers teleportation services. Once the Crimson Flame Fortress has been captured, it'll generate massive profits for the 3 involved parties. It'll also allow them to raid the Orc capital city far more quickly. What? That's the Crimson Flame Fortress. Based on our investigations, its raid difficulty ranks among the top 5 teleportation war fortresses in the Empire. It is too difficult for current players to raid, and on top of that, dark players will definitely try to interfere. Do they really dare to raid the Crimson Flame Fortress? The news astonished Purple Jade. There were countless orcs inside the Crimson Flame Fortress, and the lowest leveled among them was level 60, with the highest leveled orcs being level 75. Furthermore, the fortress was protected by many war weapons and mythic orcs. That is exactly why 9 Dragons Emperor and Blackwater are working with Beast Emperor. Based on what we know so far, Beast Emperor will guard the battlefield with his evil beast army. Meanwhile, Blackwater and 9 Dragon Emperor's armies will be responsible for sieging the fortress. With the evil beast army in their way, the dark guilds and dark players won't try to interfere. Yuan Tianxin explained. Once they capture Crimson Flame Fortress, Silverwing Town's status in the Orc Empire will become quite awkward. Thus far, the secret pavilion had only conducted a preliminary investigation on the regional dungeon, Orc capital city. Even so, the resources they had discovered had far exceeded their expectations. Not only did the regional dungeon offer a large number of magic crystals, but players would also level 50% faster if they grinded in the area. Most importantly, the Orc capital city, an intermediate city, could be captured. If one captured this intermediate city, they would earn just as much profit as the secret pavilion's magic crystal vein earned. Moreover, they wouldn't need to station a large force of players to protect the city long term. If Blackwater and 9 Dragons Emperor acquired the Orc capital city, with the wealth of resources they earned through the city, they could easily destroy Silverwing Town. The two entities might even be able to threaten Zero Wing's safety in Starmoon Kingdom. This was because Beast Emperor bore an irreconcilable vengeance against Zero Wing. Setting aside the fact that Beast Emperor had a significant portion of his foundation within Starmoon Kingdom, and would need to take over the kingdom to further his development, the secret pavilion had recently learned that of the 5 precious evil god apostle slots Beast Emperor had, Shifeng had destroyed 2. This loss had severely impacted Beast Emperor's development. If Beast Emperor got his hands on the Orc capital city's resources, he'd have a good chance of taking over Starmoon Kingdom and yanking Zero Wing out of the game by its roots. Uncle Yuan, why don't we notify Zero Wing? Purple Jade asked. Forget it. Even if Zero Wing found out, there is nothing it can do. Although Zero Wing's main force had displayed outstanding combat power in the Eclipse Gate, this revelation will not change Zero Wing's situation. While Zero Wing is fully capable of defending its territory, it simply doesn't have enough forces to launch an offensive assault on Beast Emperor. This is also the greatest problem that upstart powers with little to no background normally face, Yuan Tianxin said, shaking his head. Had Zero Wing agreed to partner with us, they might have been able to stop Beast Emperor's group. However, with Zero Wing's current forces, even if they gain the full support of Phoenix Rain, Beast Emperor is impossible to stop. In God's domain, many upstart powers rose to prominence every day, but these powers had a fatal flaw: they were ignorant of greater powers. They all deemed themselves capable of rivaling true superpowers. Although Zero Wing was superior to most of the up-and-coming powers in God's domain, it wouldn't be easy for the guild to become a true superpower. There would be plenty of other powers trying to use Zero Wing as a stepping stone and rise to prominence themselves. Meanwhile, in the Orc Empire's Silverwing Town, after a half-an-hour wait, the recently promoted Silverwing Town appeared before the crowd. Silverwing Town now occupied twice as much space as the old version. It was also much closer to the primordial divine ruin, which was now within range of the town's magic towers. Since the town was in a neutral map, Silverwing Town's walls had grown taller, as well. Now they were 7 meters tall. Divine runes had been carved into the walls, preventing players from vaulting over and enhancing the wall's defense. Guild leader, look! Even the town's buildings have changed. They look nothing like they did before. Melancholic Smile could not help but gape in shock as she looked at the tall buildings in the distance. Every building in the town had grown considerably taller. It was evident that the buildings had been upgraded as well. Rather than a town, Silverwing Town looked like a basic city. Have everyone prepared to reopen Silverwing Town to the public? Shifeng said, nodding. He had spared no expense in outfitting Silverwing Town with the most extravagant buildings he could afford precisely for this moment. This was also Neutral Town's secret. Chapter 1822 Town Opening Silverwing Town. Chapter 1822 Town Opening Silverwing Town. Under Shifeng's command, it took less than 20 minutes to complete the preparation work for Silverwing Town's reopening. Moreover, thanks to the reserve NPC guards Magic King Craig Midlands had prepared beforehand and the large number of NPCs that had come looking for work after the town's promotion completed, they had quickly filled the additional 1,000 NPC soldier slots Silverwing Town had gained. Craig Midlands himself had inspected all 1,000 of these new NPC soldiers. Due to Silverwing Town's steady development, not only had more NPCs arrived to apply for a soldier position, but higher quality NPCs had applied. Normally, when a basic town was upgraded to an intermediate town, it would struggle to fill the additional 1,000 soldier slots within a short time. The town would be fortunate to recruit around 300 Tier 1 NPCs and a dozen Tier 2 NPCs during the first week after the town's promotion. Most NPCs that applied were only elite rank. The town would slowly have to accumulate, nurture, or replace its NPC soldiers to increase the number of Tier 2 NPC soldiers it had. Yet, due to Craig Midlands' fame, over 3,000 NPCs had applied to work for Silverwing Town as soon as the promotion was complete. Including the 300 Tier 1 NPCs Craig Midlands had kept on reserve, it took no time for Silverwing Town to recruit 1,000 NPCs. Among the NPCs recruited, over 100 were Tier 2 NPCs, with the rest being Tier 1 NPCs. Normally, an intermediate town would need around 2 weeks to accumulate 100 Tier 2 NPCs. More Tier 2 NPCs would only show up and apply to work for the town after it increased its popularity. After all, Tier 2 NPCs were not abundant in God's domain. Even Zero Wing City only had a little over 2,000 Tier 2 NPC soldiers thus far, while the rest were Tier 1 NPCs. However, although Silverwing Town had plenty of high-quality NPC soldiers, Zero Wing had spent over 20,000 gold to outfit these NPCs with proper weapons and equipment. In God's domain, NPC soldiers did not come with their own items. Like players, they had to be armed. This was an important factor in strengthening a town's defenses. Of course, some NPCs would bring their own weapons and equipment when applying to become soldiers, but their items were usually low quality. They were much weaker than the standardized weapons and equipment the system provided. Naturally, the combat power these NPCs would be able to display would depend on the quality of their weapons and equipment. For example, an NPC with bronze equipment and an NPC in mysterious iron equipment would have around a 20% difference in combat power. While 20% might not seem like much to players, but it was a lot for NPCs, who possessed much higher basic attributes. When Stone Forest Town and Zero Wing City had been constructed, Zero Wing had lacked funds. Shifeng had only been able to outfit his NPC soldiers with the cheapest bronze weapons and equipment available. He had only started to upgrade the NPC's gear after the guild had money to spare. A large fraction of the investments needed to develop a town had to be spent on the NPC soldiers' weapons and equipment. In addition, these weapons and equipment needed regular repairs, which would also cost a considerable amount of money. These reasons were why most of the various large guilds avoided owning too many towns. This even held true for the various superpowers. Although the superpowers occupied many towns, they would not arm every one of them to the teeth. Instead, they would focus on developing a few select towns. However, arming the NPC soldiers with better items was why many first-rate guilds' headquarters were able to withstand sieges from super first-rate and super guilds. The longer a town developed, the stronger the NPC soldiers guarding it would become. When fully equipped with top-tier equipment, NPC soldiers could even contend with players of a higher tier. Fortunately, with the exception of some extremely powerful top-tier equipment, the majority of the weapons and equipment NPC soldiers used could be purchased from the system with coins. There was no need for players to invest time and effort into farming weapons and equipment. Hence, Shifeng had spent over 20,000 gold to arm the newly recruited NPCs. A full set of level 50 to 100 bronze equipment would cost 2 gold coins. This was extremely cheap compared to players' equipment, however. As equipment quality increased, so did the price. Level 50 to 100 mysterious iron equipment cost 10 gold per set, while secret silver equipment cost 100 gold, fine gold equipment cost 600 gold, dark gold equipment cost 1,500 gold, and epic equipment cost 6,000 gold per set. With how many NPC soldiers a town had, it was no exaggeration to say that a town's development was a bottomless pit financially. For Silverwing Town, Shurfong had decided to arm the Tier 2 NPCs with secret silver equipment, and Tier 1 NPCs with mysterious iron equipment. Although Zero Wing had earned a lot of funding through Zero Wing City and Stone Forest Town, Shurfong planned to invest the majority of that money in the Lost Town. The Lost Town was, after all, far more important and valuable than Silverwing Town. Guild leader, we have assigned duties to all of our NPC soldiers. Should we open the town now? Aqua Rose asked. Smiling, she looked at the rows of WH-equipped NPCs before her. Due to their continuous investment in Silverwing Town, these NPC soldiers had far better equipment than those in Stone Forest Town and Zero Wing City. Among the initial 1,000 NPC soldiers, over 100 Tier 2 NPCs wore fine gold equipment, while the remaining NPCs wore secret silver equipment. This was unimaginable for other guilds. Normally, other guilds would, at most, arm their NPC soldiers with mysterious iron equipment, spending the majority of their money on building the town's infrastructure. All right, let's open the gates, Shurfong said, nodding. Oh, right. Guild leader, should we limit the number of visitors? Aqua Rose asked. Although Silverwing Town can accommodate far more people now, for the sake of the NPC merchants, it's best if we set a limit. Let's set it at 1,500,000 players, Shurfong said after giving the matter some thought. We're letting so few people in? Aqua Rose was somewhat confused. After the upgrade, Silverwing Town occupied twice as much space. Even if they allowed 2 million players in, the town would, at most, be as crowded as it had been as a basic town. That's quite a lot already, actually. Shurfong could not help but laugh at Aqua Rose's greed. Moreover, Silverwing Town isn't just meant for players. We need to leave some space for NPCs. Leave space for NPCs? Aqua Rose's confusion grew after listening to Shurfeng's explanation. In any case, open the town to the public. You'll understand what I mean in a moment, Shurfong said as he gazed at the anxious crowd outside of the town. He did not bother to explain further. In God's domain, while players were important to a guild town's development, NPCs were equally important, but in a neutral map, NPCs were even more so. This was because NPCs could increase a town's popularity. Most importantly, they could create opportunities that would allow some players to get rich overnight or instantly become peak experts. However, players had only discovered this later in the game. Shurfong had to focus on preparing for that inevitability now. This was especially true now that he had the caravan guard order. Aqua Rose said nothing more after receiving Shurfeng's order. Immediately, she had some guild members gather at the town's entrance and open the gates. When the town finally reopened, a swarm of players surged into Silverwing Town. When these players saw the various buildings inside the town's walls, they were stupefied. Is this really Silverwing Town? Crap! This is too extravagant. This place can rival a small NPC city. Everyone exclaimed in shock when they saw the town's tall buildings. Quick, come over here and take a look. There's a 5-story tall smithy. Amazing! What kind of smithy is this? It's actually run by NPC master forgers. We can place custom orders and break down our old weapons and equipment here. Even if I never raid team dungeons, I can now get my hands on top-tier equipment. Stop dreaming. Didn't you see the price for custom-made items? You also have to provide the required materials. It's still better than having no access to top-tier weapons and equipment. Look, you could even order level 50 dark gold weapons and equipment. Do you think the various large guilds would sell level 50 dark gold equipment to independent players like us? When the independent players discovered the advanced Smithy's abilities, they went crazy with excitement. The services even tempted quite a few guild players. While the players in Silverwing Town discussed the advanced Smithy, Sherfone paid a visit to Starmoon Kingdom's Starmoon City. When he arrived, Sherfone made his way towards the headquarters of the Kingdom's Adventurers Association. "Lord Protector, how may I be of service?" Elk, an NPC senior administrator, respectfully asked as he approached Sherfone. "I wish to commission the association to set up a trade route to Silverwing Town," Sherfone stated as he took out a token made of black iron. This token was none other than the Caravan Guard Order. Chapter 1823 Setting up a Trade Route. Chapter 1823 Setting up a Trade Route. Setting up a trade route? Senior Administrator Elk was surprised when he saw the black iron token in Sherfang's hand. He then warned Sherfone. "Lord Protector, although you have a Caravan Guard Order and indeed qualify to set up a trade route to a town, I must warn you that it is not such an easy task. The cost involved is astronomical. Moreover, since you are setting up a trade route to Starmoon Kingdom's capital city, not only will the cost be much higher, but the risks are also significant. If you abandon the operation before it is complete, this Caravan Guard Order will become useless." "I understand. However, I am confident in securing a trade route to Silverwing Town," Sherfone said, nodding. He knew what it meant to set up a trade route. After all, he had done so many times during his previous life. If a guild town wanted to become more attractive to NPC merchants and increase the town's development speed, it had to have trade routes. Once the trade routes were in place, the town would acquire another benefit. The town in question would gain priority over rare items that NPC merchants transported. In addition, NPC merchants that used the trade route would pay the town a usage fee. While these privileges might not seem like much, they would become a neutral town's main income source before it became a city. As a town's popularity increased, more NPC merchants would visit it. Even ordinary NPCs that used the trade routes would have to pay a usage fee. The trade route would become a safe path to the town and would include high-tiered NPCs to escort visiting and departing NPCs. Not even level 100 players would dare to ambush such a trade route. Although the usage fee was only 80 coppers per NPC, if 100,000 NPCs used the trade route each day, the trade route would generate 800 gold each day. Moreover, this was only one trade route. As the ruling guild set up more trade routes, the town would generate more income. However, players could only set up trade routes for neutral towns. This function was not available for guild towns in kingdoms and empires. This function was only available to intermediate towns and above, as well. In addition, the number of NPCs that visited a guild town via the trade route would depend on the NPC city the town was connected to. The more prosperous the NPC city was, the more NPC visitors a guild town would see. If players set up a trade route to a capital city, it was almost guaranteed that their guild town would see 100,000 to 200,000 visiting NPCs every day. If the trade route were connected to an ordinary NPC city, the town would only receive around 20,000 to 50,000 NPCs. However, the more prosperous an NPC city was, the more difficult it would be to set up a trade route. Aside from a revenue source, trade routes were a good method for players to acquire rare resources. Not all of an NPC merchant caravan's goods were available to players. A considerable portion would be reserved for other NPCs. Normally, players weren't allowed to purchase these items, but if a guild town had priority over NPC merchants' goods, not only would the town's owner have access to rare items for players, but they'd also have access to NPC reserved items. Many of the NPC reserved items were materials that were very difficult to purchase via the player market. Sometimes, NPCs even sold large quantities of magic crystals. Only, they cost significantly more than the market price. Even so, this was a valuable opportunity for guilds. While it was easy to convert magic crystals into coins, the opposite wasn't. This was especially true with a large stock of magic crystals. However, NPCs were different from players. NPCs had a much easier time acquiring magic crystals because NPCs occupied most ore veins that were capable of producing magic crystals and within kingdoms and empires' borders. It was fairly normal to find NPCs who sold magic crystals carrying a stock of 5,000 to 10,000. On the other hand, one would be hard-pressed to purchase 5,000 to 10,000 magic crystals from players. NPC merchants occasionally sold rare advanced designs, as well. Although these designs would similarly be overpriced, their rarity made the cost worth it. After all, it was almost impossible to purchase advanced designs from other players. If one were extremely lucky, they could even find NPC merchants that sold fragmented legendary items or clues leading to such treasures. Although such occurrences were ridiculously rare, based on player-collected statistics, the more NPCs merchants that visited a guild town, the higher the ruling guild's chances were of finding an NPC that carried such items and clues. Naturally, every clue that led to a fragmented legendary item was extremely valuable. Since there was a possibility to acquire fragmented legendary items, Sherfone wouldn't miss the opportunity. Since players in the past hadn't often spoken about how they had acquired their fragmented legendary items, Sherfone knew very few methods to do so. In fact, most players wouldn't even reveal the fact that they owned a fragmented legendary item. Hence, Sherfone only knew about the relatively famous fragmented legendary items. However, the methods of acquiring those items were incredibly demanding, so he couldn't hunt them down at this stage of the game. Since you understand the risks involved, that is fine. If you wish to set up a trade route to Silverwing Town, it will cost you a base fee of 10,000 gold and 5,000 magic crystals. As you possess an ordinary caravan guard order, you are only allowed to form a 100-man team. The team will require a minimum of one advanced magician to carve magic arrays on the route to repel monsters. Senior Administrator Elk explained. Lord Protector, may I know if you will need me to introduce you to some mercenaries to accompany on your journey? Of course, Sherfone said, nodding. The caravan guard order was a trigger to activate the special quest for setting up a trade route. While Sherfone could rely on players to complete this quest, he could also enlist the help of the Adventurers Association's mercenaries. At this stage of the game, NPC mercenaries were undoubtedly much stronger than players. Hence, players that acquired a caravan guard order at this stage of the game would generally hire mercenaries to aid them. Unfortunately, the price was quite high. In the past, some guilds had tried to save money, confident that their members would be strong enough to handle the task. However, while Zero Wing's main force was very powerful, the trade route he wanted to establish required crossing the border into the Ore Empire. When establishing a trade route, the system would occasionally send monsters to interfere. These monsters would be 15 levels higher than the local monsters, and many of the Ore Empire's monsters were level 60 or higher. In that case, the interfering monsters would be level 75 and above once he entered the Empire. These monsters were too high of a level for Zero Wing's main force members at this time, so they weren't suitable for this quest. Alright. Here is a list of mercenaries willing to undergo this challenge with you, Lord Protector, Elk said before handing Sherfone the list. The quest to set up a trade route was very special and very dangerous. Players couldn't simply hire whatever NPC mercenaries they wished. The available mercenaries would depend on the player's status in the Adventurers Association. The higher one's status was, the more NPC mercenaries they could choose from for the operation. Amazing! 4-star treatment in the Adventurers Association is really a great help when setting up a trade route. Sherfone could not help his surprise when he read the list. During his previous life, he had only been able to recruit 3-star, Tier 2 NPCs at best. As a result, he had struggled to set up trade routes for Shadow's neutral towns. Now, however, even 2-star, Tier 3 NPCs had applied to join his quest, not to mention 3-star, Tier 2 NPCs. He had to admit that the Spirit Slayer advanced title came with some awesome benefits. Without hesitation, Sherfone spent over 15,000 gold to hire 97 mercenaries, spending almost every coin he had on hand. The weakest mercenaries he hired were level 80, 3-star, Tier 2 NPCs, with the strongest being level 83, 2-star, Tier 3 NPCs. Overall, his team had 15 Tier 3 NPCs. After Feng handled the necessary procedures and learned how to draw the necessary advanced magic array, he summoned the level 85 Anna and level 83 Kite. With 97 other NPCs in tow, he grandly departed Starmoon City, riding secret silver transport carriages. The secret silver transport carriages were an extraordinary sight to behold. 5-meter-tall lightning-horned earth dragons pulled the carriages behind them. The earth dragons themselves were great lords, and watching the caravan move down the city streets was spectacular. What's going on? Is the city hosting some kind of event? That's not it. Look! The lead transport carriage's driver is a player. Could this be a player-triggered event? That player is wearing Zero Wing's guild emblem. Zero Wing is so awesome! It can actually produce such powerful carriages? Crap! There are over 10 Tier 3 NPCs in the caravan. This is ridiculous. Chapter 1824 Strong Legion. Chapter 1824 Strong Legion. Shortly after the 10 secret silver transport carriages being pulled by lightning-horned earth dragons appeared on the streets of Starmoon City, the sight quickly sent the entire city into an uproar. The adventurer teams that made a living by delivering items were green with envy as they looked at the transport carriages. Transport carriages might not seem particularly important in the game right now, as players could simply store items inside their bag spaces and teleport to other cities. However, as players reached higher levels, transport carriages would become increasingly relevant. The number of items that could not be stored inside players' bag space would increase as players progressed further into the game. Such non-bag space items were extremely valuable, and the only way to transport them was via transport carriages. Meanwhile, the adventurer teams could purchase only horse-drawn transport carriages. On the other hand, the secret silver transport carriages had great lord-ranked lightning-horned earth dragons pulling them. There was simply no comparison between the two. Just the aura of the earth dragons was enough to scare away the mobs one would normally come across out in the fields. Not to mention, the transport carriage itself was like a huge house. One could easily imagine how many non-bag space items the transport carriage could store in such a huge transport carriage. As expected of Starmoon Kingdom's #1 guild. I wonder when our adventurer team will be able to obtain a transport carriage like that. That's right. If we have a transport carriage like that, we can earn over 10 gold per delivery trip. The adventurer team members seated on the advanced transport carriages parked along the streets cast covetous looks at the lightning-horned earth dragons. Currently, the minimum price in the delivery business for transporting a non-bag space item was 1 silver coin. The price scaled up depending on the distance traveled. Meanwhile, the adventurer team members estimated that the secret silver transport carriage could carry over 100 non-bag space items. This assumption was because the advanced transport carriages they owned were only the size of an ordinary horse carriage but could already carry a maximum of 60 non-bag space items. No matter how they looked at it, the house-sized transport carriages should be capable of transporting at least 100 non-bag space items. Only Feng knew that the value of the secret silver transport carriage was actually not the slightest bit inferior to a secret silver speedboat. The secret silver transport carriage could carry 350 non-bag space items and 30,000 bag space items. The 10 transport carriages lent to him this time were meant to convey the materials needed to carve special magic arrays. Each of these materials took up 1 non-bag space slot. Moreover, in terms of speed, the lightning-horned earth dragons were superior to even dark gold mounts. While the players on the streets were talking about the secret silver transport carriages, the lightning-horned earth dragons took only a few seconds to disappear from everyone's sight as they galloped toward the city's main gate. Although some members of large guilds tried to follow Feng and investigate his actions, their mysterious iron mounts could only eat the earth dragon's dust as they watched the secret silver transport carriages disappear from view. Sure enough, secret silver transport carriages are really fast. If Zero Wing can acquire one, transporting diamond wood and 7 luminaries crystals on land would be a lot easier. Feng could not help but be astonished as he looked at the scenery rapidly flashing by. If a transport carriage possessed such speed, even robbing it would become a very tough proposition. However, during his previous life, first-rate guilds would be very fortunate if they could acquire even bronze transport carriages, let alone secret silver transport carriages. After traveling for about half an hour, Shifeng arrived at a crossroads. He then stopped the caravan and had all the NPCs stand guard. Someone traveling from Starmoon City to Silverwing Town on a dark gold mount wouldn't be able to complete the journey even after traveling continuously for 5 or 6 days. Not to mention, one would have to cross many high-level regions during the journey. Fortunately, he was only setting up a trade route, so he didn't need to travel its entire length. All he had to do was connect some trade routes that previously were unconnected. By doing so, he would be able to bypass a few high-level regions and carve out a trade route to Silverwing Town that would come across monsters no higher than level 80. If this task were left to a first-timer, creating such a safe path without several days' worth of research would be impossible, due to a lack of familiarity with the existing trade routes of Starmoon Kingdom. Shifeng, however, knew the trade routes present within the kingdom like the back of his hand. After all, back when he was serving as Shadow's guild leader, he had been the one responsible for setting up the majority of the trade routes owned by Shadow. Hence, he was well aware of which existing trade routes would get him from Starmoon City to the borders of the Orc Empire safely and swiftly. Shifeng spent about 10 minutes to carve out a magic array in the middle of the crossroads. When he activated the magic array, a blue ripple spread out from the magic array and stopped only after covering a 30,000-yard radius. The monsters close to the crossroads immediately started distancing themselves from it. After a short moment, a safe path was established between the route he currently stood on and a nearby trade route. After completing this task, he led his caravan toward the nearest NPC town. He then used the teleportation array there to travel to another NPC town and continued connecting other independent trade routes. Throughout his journey, he caused quite a commotion across the entire Starmoon Kingdom. The various major powers based within the kingdom grew restless and confused at Shifeng's actions, unable to figure out what Zero Wing was trying to do. After running around for a day or so, Shifeng successfully created a new trade route that connected Starmoon City and the border between Starmoon Kingdom and the Orc Empire. For the remainder of the trade route, due to the absence of existing trade routes within the Orc Empire, Shifeng had no choice but to create an entirely new one by himself. When the various guild players grinding and questing in the Orc Empire's outer area saw the secret silver transport carriages approaching, they involuntarily gaped in shock. Compared to the lightning-horned earth dragons pulling the transport carriages, the level 60 orcs trying to stop the carriages were nothing more than jokes. The earth dragons sent every orc that stood in their path flying with a single headbutt. In the end, the lightning-horned earth dragons took only a brief moment to break through the blockade of several thousand orcs. Then, after reaching an empty section of the road, the convoy of carriages suddenly came to a halt. In the next moment, level 70-plus orcs and monsters appeared out of nowhere and charged at the cloaked man that just alighted from the lead carriage. The man was sporting a 6-winged emblem. As the orcs and monsters closed in on the man, groups of NPCs got off the other carriages and took up a defensive formation. These NPCs were all level 80 and above, and even the weakest among them was tier 2. Despite facing an army of several thousand monsters, these NPCs remained steadfast as they defended the cloaked man. Meanwhile, the dozen or so tier 3 NPCs fighting in the front lines sent groups of lord-ranked orcs and monsters flying with a casual attack. Among these NPCs was a golden-haired beauty that summoned a great lord-ranked golden giant, which thoroughly suppressed the great lord-ranked orc leading the assault on the caravan. Meanwhile, every offensive spell cast by the golden-haired beauty wrenched a cry of pain from the great lord-ranked orc, whose HP decreased rapidly. The army of several thousand orcs and monsters were utterly helpless against this 100-man team. The monsters couldn't even get within 30 yards of Shifeng before dying at the NPC's hands. The horrific scene made the spectating guild players nearby shudder in fear. Meanwhile, the spectating guilds included the Blackwater Guild, which Shifeng was very familiar with. Currently, there was a 1,000-man team from Blackwater present led by Singular Burial. At this moment, however, Singular Burial no longer had a tyrannical air around him. After suffering consecutive defeats, he had lost all his corporate backing, which left him in an extremely awkward position in the Blackwater Guild. Now, he was only an inconspicuous elder in Blackwater. Moreover, he was only level 53 right now. He looked nothing like the almighty guild leader of Heaven's Burial. Who is that person? How is he able to control so many NPCs? Wait a minute! Isn't that female NPC one of Black Flame's personal guards? She is! That's Anna! Crap, doesn't that mean that player is Black Flame? Not good! Black Flame is looking over. At this moment, when Blackwater's members looked at Silverwing, fear flooded their hearts because they were all fully aware that he could command the NPCs around him to reap their lives at a whim. Meanwhile, they would be utterly powerless to do anything about it. Chapter 1825 One success was built atop the sacrifice of thousands. Chapter 1825 One success was built atop the sacrifice of thousands. As the NPC Legion pushed back the approaching orc and monster army, a wall of corpses quickly formed on each side of the road. These NPCs are so strong! I get the feeling that this NPC team can even raid an ordinary guild town. I know, right? Just look at those tier 3 NPCs going. They are throwing level 70 plus great lords with a single hit. Their individual combat power is likely even higher than grand lords of the same rank. Even if these tier 3 NPCs aren't enough to raid a guild town, they're more than enough to kill every one of us. As expected of Starmoon Kingdom's #1 expert. With the ability to control so many powerful NPCs, Black Flame could easily annihilate armies of tens of thousands of players. It's no wonder why the various superpowers are helpless against Silverwing. The various spectating guilds and adventurer teams gulped as they watched the fight between the NPCs and monsters. Tier 2 NPCs were much stronger than Tier 2 players of the same level. Only peak experts with several pieces of epic equipment could possibly contend with an ordinary Tier 2 NPC. If Tier 2 players tried to face a Tier 2 NPC that was over 20 levels higher, they could only wait for their deaths. As for Tier 3 NPCs, they would only need a few moves to finish off Tier 2 players. If the targeted Tier 2 players lacked defensive capabilities, they might die after one hit. If these NPCs turned their blades against Tier 1 players like themselves, a single attack would be more than enough to kill several of them instantly. Blackwater's members are probably doomed. That's right. Blackwater has been picking a lot of fights with Silverwing in the Orc Empire. Now that Black Flame has found some of Blackwater's members, he'll massacre them. The various large guilds members couldn't help but watch Blackwater's members with pity as they fought the local orcs. Nowadays, Blackwater and Silverwing's members would fight whenever they came across each other in the fields. Although Blackwater currently had over 1,000 members present, before the Sword King, the group was a joke. Furthermore, Black Flame had a team of level 80 plus NPCs with him. This further reduced the chances of Blackwater's members escaping this place alive. Why is Black Flame here? We're doomed! We're doomed! Fear colored the faces of Blackwater's members as they watched Silverwing. They had experienced the man's might firsthand, so they knew just how powerful he was. Black Flame was truly unstoppable. He could easily single out and kill a specific player while surrounded by an army of tens of thousands. Although their team currently had over 1,000 well-equipped elite and expert players, Black Flame could annihilate them all by himself. Their only option was to run. If others heard their thoughts, they'd be a laughingstock. If 1,000 elite players simultaneously attacked a single expert, one move should be enough to end the battle. Even a peak expert would try to avoid a 1,000-man enemy elite team. How could a lone player possibly defeat an army of elite players? However, they knew very, very well that the likelihood of such a situation was high. Not only did Black Flame possess multiple large-scale destruction spells, but he also had ridiculous movement speed. He also had enough strength to contend with mythic monsters. In addition, he was capable of summoning powerful monsters. It wasn't an exaggeration to call Black Flame a one-man army. Damn it! Why is he here? Singular Burial paled when he saw Silverwing's cloaked figure. Looking at Silverwing now, Singular Burial was no longer as confident as he had been in the past. He harbored no thoughts of fighting Shifeng, as he knew that doing so would be a waste of energy. In fact, it would only lead to a quicker death. Singular Burial could not understand why Shifeng had come to a backwater place like this. They were currently in the Orc Empire's outer region. For an expert of Shifeng's caliber, only grinding or questing in the Empire's core would be worth his time. He had struggled to stabilize his standing in Blackwater. In the hopes of elevating his position in the guild, he had been doing his best to raise the Heaven's Burial members that had followed him to join Blackwater, yet before his efforts could bear fruit, he had encountered Shifeng. "Commander, what should we do?" Daybreak Fog revealed a somber expression when she saw Shifeng, as well. After Heaven's Burial disbanded and Flame Blood was crippled, over half of Heaven's Burial's main force members had chosen separate paths. Because of this, their positions in Blackwater had plummeted. Among their 1,000-man team, only 100 or so were experts. While this might be a high number compared to other 1,000-man elite teams, it was nowhere near enough to deal with Shifeng. To Shifeng, their experts were no different than the team's elite players. The swordsman could kill them all with one hit. "We don't have any other choice. Have everyone slowly retreat. We can't afford another loss. Get ready to use the Tier 3 group instantaneous teleportation scroll to send the main force away from this place. Everyone else should spread out and run. Absolutely do not fight Black Flame," Singular Burial said, gnashing his teeth. The Tier 3 group instantaneous teleportation scroll was extremely valuable, an item he had obtained after completing a difficult team quest. It was also the only life-saving tool he had to save his team. However, the teleportation scroll could only teleport a maximum of 100 players. He couldn't transport his entire team. "I understand." Daybreak Fog nodded. She then took a silver magic scroll from her bag and eyed Shifeng's every movement. If she noticed the slightest change, she'd activate the scroll immediately. However, Shifeng, who sat on the leading transport carriage, had finally finished carving an expulsion magic array on a crystal shard. He then tossed the crystal to the ground before him and started chanting an incantation. Very quickly, the crystal merged with the earth. A slightly incomplete magic array then formed beneath Shifeng's feet. Seeing this, Shifeng took out several light blue crystals to complete the array. Once complete, a blue ripple of light radiated out from the array. As if something had frightened them, the level 70+ orcs and monsters, which had been busy fighting the NPCs, fled from the caravan. Even the orcs and monsters several hundred yards away from the caravan began to back away. The spectating crowd nearby stared with dropped jaws. What did he just do? The several thousand orcs and monsters that had previously occupied the road had retreated by over 500 yards, watching the road in terror. Every monster as far as the eye could see did the same. Not one dared to approach the road. Once Shifeng finished his work, he collected the leftover materials. As he returned to the transport carriage, he noticed a 1,000-man legion backing away from his position. Singular Burial? Shifeng quickly spotted Singular Burial among this 1,000-man legion. However, his old enemy watched him cautiously. Seeing this, Shifeng could not help but sigh inwardly. Currently, Singular Burial wore a mix of level 50 secret silver and fine gold equipment. Aside from the man's longbow, Shifeng could easily discern the rank of his other items. Looking at him now, it was hard to believe Singular Burial had once been the guild leader of an almighty guild in Starmoon Kingdom. This was the cruel reality of God's domain. In God's domain, one success was built atop the sacrifice of thousands. After a glance at Singular Burial, Shifeng climbed back onto his transport carriage and had the convoy continue down the road. If he did not complete the trade route quickly, the expulsion magic arrays he had already set up within the Empire would begin to disappear. This was the time limit players had to endure. The system would not allow players to take their sweet time when establishing a trade route. As for killing Singular Burial and the others, he had no interest in such a task. Moreover, with Singular Burial's current state, he didn't consider the man a threat. After realizing that Shifeng was leaving without a fight, Blackwater's members breathed a deep sigh of relief. Commander Black Flame left. Daybreak Fog could not help but cry out with joy when she saw Surefong drive his transport carriage away. When Surefong had turned to look at them, she had nearly used the precious group instantaneous teleportation scroll out of anxiety. Yes, he left. Singular Burial wore an expression of mixed indignation and sadness as he watched Surefong leave. He had noticed a hint of pity in Surefeng's eyes. This discovery had dealt an unprecedented mental blow. Is he trying to say that I don't even qualify to face him now? Chapter 1826 Vulcan's Sigh. Chapter 1826 Vulcan's Sigh. After Surefong left, all of the various large guilds' members visibly relaxed. Black Flame is leaving, just like that? He doesn't intend to deal with Blackwater's members? My guess is that Black Flame finds it beneath him to deal with them. I've watched the battles that occurred at the primordial divine ruin. Black Flame had soloed a mythic monster. Then he sent both Blackwater's army and the evil beast army running with their tails tucked between their legs. A measly 1,000-man elite team probably isn't worth his effort. Black Flame is too strong. His presence alone was enough to make the various large guilds shrink back with fear. It's no wonder why Black Flame is recognized as Star Moon Kingdom's #1 expert. He is far stronger than those famous peak experts. The adventurer teams watching from a short distance away were shocked when they looked at the various guild players, who watched the departing convoy cautiously. They had never thought that the presence of a single player would be enough to deter so many guild players. They had all heard many rumors about Black Flame, but they had assumed the rumors were jokes and baseless assertions. However, they simply treated those rumors as jokes and baseless assertions. However, after seeing the man in person today, they finally understood that the rumors were actually true. In fact, Black Flame was even scarier than the rumors made him out to be. Because of this discovery, many of these independent players, who hadn't been interested in joining any guild, began to have second thoughts. They all considered joining Zero Wing, especially the swordsman players. This was especially true for swordsman players. Unbeknownst to Surefong, his casual action of sparing Blackwater's members had made many independent players in the Orc Empire reconsider their position about joining his guild. At the same time, news of Surefeng's appearance in the Orc Empire had reached the various dark players hiding in the Empire. Commander, we have discovered Black Flame. Where? He's near the Orc Empire's border. However, there are quite a number of NPCs moving with him. Taking him out won't be easy. Follow after him for now. I'll gather our members and head over as soon as possible. As long as our Wind's Arrow Adventurer team kills Black Flame once, we'll qualify to join Dark Soul. We cannot miss this opportunity, so follow him closely. Understood. The various Dark Adventurer teams operating within the Orc Empire began to make their way towards Surefong. Some time ago, the Dark Knight Empire's Dark Soul had placed a bounty on Zero Wing. For each Zero Wing upper echelon killed, one could earn a Dark Mutation slot. If one managed to kill Zero Wing's guild leader, regardless of whether an individual or an entire team completed the task, both would be welcome to join Dark Soul. Individuals would be given command of a new adventurer team in Dark Soul. To players that operated in the Dark Soul's reputation was equivalent to that of a super guild. Joining the Dark Alliance and become one of its commander-level figures was no different than becoming the vice guild leader in a super guild. Why wouldn't such an offer be tempting? The various Dark Adventurer teams and several Dark guilds began an enthusiastic search for Black Flame. Although Black Flame was very powerful, even giants would fall against overwhelming numbers. God's Domain also had many special methods to kill players. Dark Soul had not specified a requirement to defeat Black Flame with raw strength. The lightning-horned earth dragons dashed down the Orc Empire's gravel roads. As Surefong ventured deeper into the Orc Empire, stronger monsters and orcs showed up to hinder his progress. Initially, most of the monsters had only been chieftains, but now, lords began to target his caravan. If not for the lightning-horned earth dragons being level 80 great lords, the monsters in their way would have stopped the caravan long ago. Sure enough, It really is difficult to set up a trade rule in a land ruled by the dark forces. Shifeng inwardly celebrated as he watched one Lord-ranked orc get knocked aside after another. Fortunately, he was the first player to set up a trade route in Starmoon Kingdom, and had the privilege of using the lightning-horned earth dragons. Normally, players would only have access to mysterious iron transport carriages, which were only pulled by Lord-ranked monsters, when setting up a trade route. Traveling through a neutral map under the Dark Forces' rule with such carriages would be extremely difficult. He would have had to stop his progress whenever he was attacked. In that case, he would have had to rely on the NPCs he had hired to clear a path, or dispatch a large number of his guild members to do so. With the lightning-horned earth dragons, however, he could simply bulldoze his way through. Though, due to the large number of orcs and monsters blocking his path, his advance had slowed considerably. Now, the transport carriages only moved a little faster than players running at full speed. Meanwhile, this was only the beginning of the Dark Forces' territory. As Shifeng traveled deeper into the Empire, he would encounter more numerous and powerful orcs and monsters, which even the Tier 3 NPCs accompanying him would have some trouble with. After about 8 hours, Shifeng arrived before an orc fortress. According to the system map, the fortress was the final point for the trade route. This quest. Does it really want me to build the expulsion magic array inside the fortress? As Shifeng watched the patrolling orcs on the fortress's walls, he wondered if he had read his system map wrong. This was nothing like the orcs he had faced on the road earlier. On his way here, he had faced wild orcs or orc patrols, but these orcs were members of the Orc Empire's well-trained army. Fortunately, due to his quest, the fortress only had around 3,000 orc guards, far fewer than normal. In return, however, their levels and rank had increased significantly. Now, the weakest orc guarding the fortress was a chieftain, with the majority of the orcs being lords. The leader of these creatures was even a level 80 mythic-ranked orc general. After spotting Shifeng's caravan, the orc general raised its great sword with one hand and loosed a furious roar. Suddenly, the army of 3,000 orcs stationed inside the fortress flooded out of the fortress's gates and marched towards Shifeng's caravan. Sturdy, shield-wielding orcs occupied the front line while agile, bow-wielding orcs moved at the rear. The orc army's approach even made the NPCs with Shifeng nervous. Shifeng could see well over 100 great lord-ranked orcs and over a dozen grand lords. This force was on an entirely different level than the caravan's contingent. As Shifeng wondered if something had gone awry, the sound of a system notification reached his ears. System, you have triggered the epic trade route quest. Orc King's ambitions. You may choose to accept or abandon this quest. If you complete this quest, you will receive a commendation from Starmoon Kingdom and qualify to build an airport. Abandoning this quest will not affect your original trade route quest. If you choose to abandon this quest, the system will designate an alternative path for the trade route. You have 3 minutes to consider. An epic trade route quest? Shifeng was stunned when he read the system notification, but after seeing the quest rewards, he couldn't help his growing excitement. Could this be the reward for being the first player to set up a trade route? The qualifications to build an airport. Countless guilds and neutral maps dreamed of acquiring this qualification, but very few succeeded in doing so. In the past, not a single guild had revealed how they had managed it. Meanwhile, the sensational scene at the Orc Fortress stupefied the various dark adventurer teams and dark guilds following Shifeng. Crap! What's going on? Is Black Flame trying to raid the fortress? Does he intend to raid a fortress by himself? Is he crazy? Black Flame is insane. That's an orc fortress we're talking about. Although he can stand against a mythic monster for some time, capturing a fortress is a different story entirely. Even if he has some NPCs to support him, ambushing a fortress is impossible. As the dark players watched the distance between the orc army and Shifeng's caravan decrease, they were dumbfounded. They had watched many guilds try to raid one of the Orc Empire's fortresses before, but this was the first time they had seen a single player attempt it. Commander, what should we do? Should we attack Black Flame? These orcs are too high-leveled. Moreover, there's a mythic orc among them, If we attack carelessly, we might get dragged into the fight. Let's wait. It won't be too late to take action once the Orc army pushes Black Flame and his NPCs back. All of the Dark Adventurer teams and Dark Guilds following Sherfone came to the same decision. Meanwhile, as the Orc army approached the caravan, Sherfone and his NPCs prepared for battle. Let's give it a try, Sherfone decided after analyzing his current combat power and the challenge. The quest had only mentioned that he needed to set up an expulsion magic array in the fortress, not capture the fortress. There was a huge difference between the two tasks. Naturally, the former was far easier. Moreover, this was a valuable opportunity. It would be a huge waste to give it up. Grinding his teeth, Sherfone accepted the quest. He then pulled a magic scroll with crimson divine runes from his bag. This magic scroll was none other than the Tier 4 continuous use magic scroll, Vulcan's Sigh, which he had acquired from the gold magic crystal treasure chest in the Eclipse throne. The magic scroll was even more valuable than ordinary epic equipment. Vulcan's Sigh was also an extremely rare summoning scroll. He had hoped to save the scroll as a trump card for any future guild wars, but using it to complete this epic trade route quest was worth the expenditure. Following which, Sherfone injected 1,000 magic crystals of mana into the magic scroll and activated it. In the next moment, a crimson, threefold magic array manifested beneath Sherfone's feet. The sky also began to transform, and the earth started to quake. Why did the sky suddenly go dark? Everyone noticed dark clouds block out the sun. A moment later, the space around Sherfone began to freeze. The spectating dark players felt a powerful aura assault their minds and bodies. Chapter 1827 Battle of Monsters. Chapter 1827 Battle of Monsters. As the dusky space froze, over 24 magic arrays appeared in the cloudy sky, radiating a light that illuminated the Orc fortress and its surroundings. As these magic arrays manifested, the dark players felt their aura's intensity increase, making their bodies feel much heavier than a moment ago. As the heavy feeling grew, they began to panic. What's going on? Why can't I move? What did Black Flame do? Everyone quickly discovered that they couldn't even move a finger, much less walk away. They felt as if time had stopped. Moreover, they weren't the only ones subjected to this phenomenon. Even the Orc army had fallen deathly silent. Some orcs had even lost strength to stand and fell to a knee, terrified. Following which, the sky shattered and formed a massive black hole. If one looked closely, they would notice a pair of flaming eyes, as large as small mountains, within the black hole. As these eyes appeared, the pressure on the players present increased yet again. Immediately, all of the orcs, including the mythic ranked orc general, slumped to the ground and shuddered in fear. What's going on? It's over! We're doomed! Damn it! This must be a trap Black Flame set up. We've been tricked! As the dark players looked up at the massive pair of eyes, they sensed their impending death and destruction. They weren't even ants before the owner of those eyes. As long as the creature willed it, its aura alone would slay these players. It wouldn't even need to attack. The players from the various Dark Adventurer teams and Dark Guilds suddenly regretted their decision to target Sherfone. Just as everyone cowered before their doom, the pair of flaming orbs vanished abruptly before fire began to pour from the black hole, raining down on the Orc Empire like meteors. Boom! 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 A series of explosions shook the Orc fortress and the area. The ground trembled so violently that the dark players, who stood quite a distance away, nearly lost their footing. The shower of fire continued for 6 seconds, transforming the earth under the Orc army into a burning hell's cape. By the time flames stopped pouring out of the black hole, the chieftain-ranked orcs had been wiped out while the lords sustained heavy injuries. The several thousand dark players gasped when they saw this outcome. With one attack, Sherfone had obliterated half of the entire Orc army. However, before the crowd could recover from their shock, the fire on the battlefield converged and transformed into easily over 100 flame giants. The weakest among these flame giants was a level 80 High Lord, whereas the strongest 5 were level 82 Grand Lords. Vulcan's Sigh is actually so powerful? Even Shurfong was astonished as he gazed at the flame giants. He had assumed that he'd be lucky to summon even one Grand Lord. He had never expected for Vulcan's Sigh to summon such a powerful legion of flame giants. After the single activation of Vulcan's Sigh, Shurfong noticed that the magic scroll had lost half of its durability. In other words, Vulcan's Sigh was a continuous-use magic scroll that could only be used twice. Moreover, he would have to wait 2 natural days before he could use the scroll again. He could not use it consecutively. However, Shurfong was very satisfied with the result. Although most Tier 4 continuous-use magic scrolls could be used 4 to 6 times, their effects couldn't compare to Vulcan's Sigh. The Flame Legion's arrival instantly disrupted the Orc army's formation. The 20-meter-tall Grand Lord-ranked flame giants sent over a dozen Orcs flying with a single slap. In terms of strength, even the Grand Lord-ranked Orc warriors were no match for the Grand Lord-ranked flame giants. For a time, the Legion of Flame Giants brought chaos to the Orc army. The battle between the Flame Giants and Orcs was earth-shattering. Sounds of slaughter and explosions echoed across the barren plains that surrounded the Orc fortress, stupefying the dark players that hid in the distant forest. Although the battle only involved several thousand monsters, it was no less intense than a battle between tens of thousands of players. If players joined this fight, even the shockwaves from the Orcs and Flame Giants clashing would vaporize them. While the Orc army tangled with the Flame Legion, Shurfong used the opportunity to lead his NPC mercenaries past the Orc army and towards the Orc fortress. He did not need to exterminate the Orc army to capture the fortress. He only needed to set up the expulsion magic array inside of it. Moreover, Shurfong did not think that he could defeat the Orc army. The army was led by a mythic Orc, after all. Although the Flame Giants were powerful, a mythic-ranked creature could easily suppress them. Furthermore, the Flame Legion was badly outnumbered. It was only a matter of time before the Orcs wiped the Legion out. When Shurfong was within 500 yards of the fortress, the level 80 Orc general discovered his group. With a roar, the Orc general raised its great sword, firing a chilling beam attack at the Grand Lord-ranked Flame Giant before it. The attack sent the Flame Giant flying back as a layer of ice formed on the ground before the Orc general. The mythic Orc then led a group of subordinates as they ran down the icy path its attack had created to block the fortress's entrance with their bodies. Other Orcs also began to abandon their fights with the Flame Giants, charging towards Shurfeng's group. Sure enough, they won't let me through so easily. Shurfong smiled bitterly as he looked at the Orc general before the fortress's entrance. He then turned toward Anna and ordered, "Do it!" Nodding, Anna began to chant as she approached the Orc general. When less than 100 yards separated the two, Anna finished her spell and pointed her staff at the Orc general. Suddenly, a level 85, Tier 4 Valkyrie descended from the sky. Using an advanced instantaneous movement, the Valkyrie instantly appeared before the Orc general and swept the lightning spear in her hands at the mythic Orc. Boom! Failing to react in time to the strike, the Orc general and a dozen or so great Lord-ranked Orcs got sent flying over 100 yards to the side. The Valkyrie's frightening strength had even shattered the ground before her, creating a small ravine. Good! Shurfong then led his group into the fortress, commanding his NPC mercenaries to guard the entrance while he headed for the system-designated location to set up the expulsion magic array. The fortress's entrance wasn't particularly large. 20 NPCs would be more than enough to form a barricade. Fortunately, the fortress's walls had been enhanced with magic runes, and not even mythic monsters would be able to jump over them. Now, the Orcs could only enter the fortress if they destroyed its walls or the NPCs guarding the entrance. The fortress walls were quite sturdy, and it would even take a mythic monster some time to destroy them. By the time the Orc general created an opening, Shurfong would have long since completed his task. The only way the Orc general could get into the fortress before Shurfong finished was through the main entrance. Hence, stationing guards would be enough. Very quickly, Shurfong found the targeted location. Wasting no time, he immediately took out a large, blue crystal from his epic rank spatial bag and began to engrave the expulsion magic array. As the seconds ticked by, more Orcs tried to force their way into the fortress. The Tier 2 NPCs defending the entrance began to die, one after another. Only the Tier 3 NPCs barely held their ground against the Grand Lord ranked Orc warriors. The Valkyrie fought a fierce battle against the Orc general outside of the building, doing her best to injure the mythic Orc. Meanwhile, the Orc general was utterly powerless to stop the beating. Although the Orc general was a level 80 mythic ranked creature, the Valkyrie was a level 85 mythic ranked angel. There was a massive difference between the two beings' life ratings. The Valkyrie completely overpowered the Orc general, and it took everything it had just to block the Valkyrie's attacks. Occasionally, the Orc general slipped up, and the Valkyrie's attacks sent it flying. The watching Dark players were flabbergasted. The various commanders and upper echelons from the Dark adventurer teams and Dark guilds wiped the sweat from their foreheads. They inwardly celebrated the fact that they hadn't rushed to attack Shifeng. The consequences would have been unimaginably dire. By the time the Valkyrie disappeared, the Orc general was heavily injured, greatly reducing its combat power. Now, it was only slightly more powerful than the Grand Lord ranked Orc warriors. I need to hurry. When Shifeng saw the Orc general attack the guards at the entrance, he began to inscribe runes faster. 20 seconds. 40 seconds. 60 seconds. Once the Orc general rejoined the fight, more NPC mercenaries began to fall. In just 60 seconds, over 10 Tier 2 NPCs had died. One of the Tier 3 NPCs had even sustained heavy injuries. When there were fewer than 30 NPC mercenaries remaining, the Orc general used a powerful skill and charged past the blockade. Upon entering the fortress and spotting Shifeng, the Orc general roared and swung its great sword at the offending swordsman. Suddenly, a cold energy beam shot toward Shifeng, and everything it passed froze. While inscribing the magic array, Shifeng couldn't move without canceling the inscription process. He'd have to start all over again. Hence, Shifeng had no choice but to activate absolute defense. After the energy beam disappeared, everything except for Shifeng's immediate surroundings had frozen solid. When the Orc general saw that Shifeng had survived, it was further enraged. It charged up to Shifeng, brandishing its great sword. Despite the fact that the power of the Orc general's attacks shattered the ground around him, Shifeng remained unharmed. However, his heart pounded with nervous energy, rather than feeling relieved. Just when Absolute Domain's duration was about to end, the blue crystal in Shifeng's hand suddenly lit up. He had finally finished inscribing the magic array. Go! Shifeng shoved the crystal into the ground before him. As the crystal melded with the ground, a magic array appeared beneath Shifeng's feet. Seeing this, Shifeng activated Heavenly Dragon's power, his attributes skyrocketing. Scram! Shifeng yelled as he swung Killing Ray at the Orc general. Lightning slash! A blue lightning bolt struck the Orc general, and like a cannonball, the creature flew backward, only stopping when it crashed into a nearby wall. Using this opportunity, Anna had her 10 rock guardians form a magic array around the Orc general, trapping the mythic Orc. Meanwhile, Shifeng took out several small crystals for the magic array's finishing touches. Since Shifeng was now very familiar with the process, he only needed 10 seconds to complete the array. As the magic array completed, a blue ripple of light enveloped the war fortress. A moment later, a series of system notifications reached Shifeng's ears. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.